The moment the transport ship's hatch slid open, a sour, putrid stench flooded Mooley's nostrils. It reeked of corroded metal soaked in cheap disinfectant, mixed with fumes of burnt plastic. Her throat stung sharply, her chest tight and aching. Before her feet even touched the ground, the radiation alarm on her wristband blazed a searing crimson. LX 7749. We've arrived. The escort officer stood by the hatch, staring at her through a protective mask, undisguised contempt lacing his tone. The fake daughter the Move family raised. The entire galactic net's betting on how long you'll last. I'm only stationed here 3 days, no longer. Mooley lifted her gaze to meet his eyes. Fragmented memories of the original host crashed through her mind, cast out by the Mu household. Framed for stealing corporate secrets, sentenced to exile on a junk planet. Sharp, chaotic, like an unsharpened blade scraping raw nerves. Yet she only furrowed her brows faintly. 3 days? Back in her past life, during the worst water shortage of the apocalypse, she'd cultivated an entire sweet potato patch within a zombie-infested city, surviving on half a sack of moldy wheat and a broken shovel. No matter how rotten this junk planet was, it could never compare to hordes of flesh-eating corpses. Seeing her silence, the escort officer's mouth twisted downward. He'd hoped to witness her breakdown, and his irritation showed. He kicked hard. A tattered survival backpack tumbled out of the hatch and crashed onto the charcoal gray mud. Its zipper split half open, its contents clattering against one another. 3 bottles of the lowest grade nutrient paste, 1 set of tools, a portable terminal. Ration them wisely, don't resort to gnawing trash by day 1. A second escort peeked out the cabin window, then hastily resecured the airtight latches. Sir, the pollution index here is spiking dangerously. We can't linger. Without a radiation suit, she'll mutate from prolonged exposure. The officer's grin turned crueler. Perfect. The Empire's public spectacle needs a clear show for everyone to see. Fakes belong in the garbage. At those words, Mooley's fingers curled slightly. Not out of hurt. When she laid eyes on the endless wasteland of trash stretching beyond the hatch, her hands itched with eagerness instead. Mountainous piles of discarded mech hulls, fractured transport pipelines, blackened domestic waste, half-buried chemical tanks, and stone blanched gray by radiation. Fine dust swirled on the wind, stinging her skin like pinpricks. Rotten beyond belief. But there was soil. Where there was soil, there was something to work with. Without waiting for her response, the escort tapped his wrist. Exile prisoner Mooley delivered to LX 7749. Identity privileges revoked. Galactic citizenship downgraded to junk planet resident. No return clearance authorized. A cold robotic voice echoed through the ship, confirmed. The hatch began to slide upward the next second. Mooley bent to pick up her backpack and brushed the grime off its surface. As the gap between the closing hatch narrowed, the officer tossed one last taunt. Miss Mouchouet sent a message. She wants you to stay alive. Your quick death would rob her of all her entertainment. Mooley froze mid-motion and lifted her head, locking eyes with him through the thin slit. She did not scream, nor shed a tear. She simply slung the backpack straps over her shoulders, her tone as calm as gossiping about a stranger's affairs. Tell her this. We'll see who ends up with the entertainment. The escort scowled, ready to retort, but the hatch sealed shut completely. The ship's engines roared, kicking up clouds of black dust. Waves of sour fumes washed across the ground, and Mooley stepped back, raising a hand to cover her nose and mouth. When the transport ship lifted off, its thrusters burned a charred crater into the earth. Seconds later, the silver vessel shrank to a tiny glint high above, vanishing into the murky gray sky. Nothing remained but the howling wind, and the radiation warning flickering nonstop on her wristband. Mooley stood rooted to the spot, the backpack digging an indentation into her shoulders. She glanced down at the ground beneath her feet, hard black topsoil coated with an oily iridescent film that squelched stickily under pressure. The original host would have suffocated under this crushing desolation by now. But she knelt down. First, she unzipped the backpack. 3 nutrient paste bottles rolled into her palm, their surfaces dull gray, labeled Grade D synthetic basic rations. The liquid inside resembled diluted wall plaster, swirling with stringy sediment when shaken. Mooley twisted a cap open and sniffed, her brows drawing tight. Industrial artificial flavorings, cheap protein, trace vitamins. Enough to sustain vital functions, but barely edible. She screwed the lid back on tightly and stowed the bottles neatly in the side pocket. Having endured years of poverty, she knew better than to waste even foul sustenance. Next came a rusted iron shovel. Its handle's paint peeled away, the metal blade bent and chipped, tiny shards of steel pricking her palms when she gripped it. Still, Mooley hefted its weight, a faint spark lighting up her eyes. It could dig soil. That was enough. The third item was a cracked portable terminal. Spider-webbed fractures spread across one corner of the screen, its casing dented from repeated drops. She pressed the power button. The device lagged for ages before loading the Galactic Net homepage. The top trending headline blazed bright red. Hashtag countdown to fake heiress. Mooley's exile on the junk planet. Hashtag a glaring viral tag sat beside it. Mooley pressed her fingertip across the screen, swarms of comments flooding the display. Here we go, the Empire's biggest joke of the year. Fakes deserve junk planets. Miss Mouchouet lost 20 years of her life to this imposter. Tragic. LX7749? That's a heavily polluted trash star. Official data puts survival rates below 3%. Place your bets. I say she'll be sobbing for her mom by tonight. 3 grade D paste bottles? Haha, they're basically letting her starve slowly. Word is she stole nutrient paste core formulas. Bold move. Mooley's finger hovered along the screen's edge as she scanned the lines. Memories of the framed theft were fuzzy, yet one scene burned clear in her mind, Mouchouet slipping an encrypted file into her desk drawer. The next morning, the entire Moof family stormed into her room. Her adoptive mother screamed in her face. Her adoptive father signed the disownment papers. Mouchouet stood at the back of the crowd, her white dress spotlessly clean. Sister, why would you do something like this? Back then, the original host had no way to defend herself. Now it fell to Mooley to clean up this mess. She powered the terminal off. The screen went black, cutting off the endless jeers. She rubbed her stinging nose, raw from the sour wind, grabbed the shovel, and scanned her surroundings. No water, no shelter, no radiation protection, no proper food. Perfect, she'd hit rock bottom right out the gate. Her survival instinct, honed like a squirrel hoarding supplies, flared awake instantly. She stowed the 3 nutrient bottles deep inside the backpack's inner lining, slipped the terminal into an inner pocket, and kept even frayed broken data cables. Nothing counted as trash on a wasteland, only undiscovered resources. Once everything was secured, she knelt, pulled off her right glove, and pressed her palm flat against the soil. A cold, burning tingle seeped through her skin. Tiny particulate pollutants clogged every crevice of the earth. Prolonged contact would rot human skin and gnaw away nerves with radiation. Mooley closed her eyes, channeling her wood element ability from her palm, sending countless wispy green threads snaking down into the dead soil, searching for any flicker of life. No grass roots. No fungal mycelium. No insect eggs. The planet's topsoil had been nearly eroded away by toxic contamination, life energy frighteningly scarce. Wind whistled through the trash mountains, clattering loose sheets of scrap metal. Something mutated slithered past in the distance, dragging its tail and leaving a shiny wet trail behind it. Mooley's brows sank lower and lower. She feared neither poverty, filth, nor grueling labor. What terrified her was having no seeds. A farmer without seeds faced a fate worse than starvation. She shifted position, pressing her palm deeper into the earth. Rough black soil and sharp pebbles pricked her fingertips, drawing a bead of blood. The drop sank into the dirt, stirring her wood ability, faint green light burrowing further underground. Just as she prepared to pull back, her fingertips brushed a faint response. Frail, barely perceptible, like a dying ember smothered beneath thick ash. Mooley held her breath, snatched up the rusted shovel, and dug regardless of the metal scraping her raw palms. The first scoop brought up moldy plastic packaging. The second, a slab of rotting synthetic board. The third unearthed a clump of slimy, decaying refuse, its stinging fumes making her eyes water. She tilted her head to catch her breath, then dug deeper with her bare hands. Mud coated her cuffs, black oil clogging every crevice of her fingers. Yet she dug faster, driven by desperation. That spark of life lay directly beneath, as if calling out to her. Further down, a patch of tawny yellow peeked out from the rotting garbage pile. Mooley's fingers probed inside, closing around a hard, round object thrumming with faint vitality. She curled her fingers around it and pulled, dragging up a mass of sticky black rot with it. The round item rolled gently across her palm, its skin shriveled, caked in reeking muck and dust. Several pale yellow sprouts poked out of its dimples, thin as fraying threads. She stared at it for 2 full seconds, releasing the tight breath trapped in her throat. This was a potato? Ancient earth potato. One of the most vital staple crops from her old apocalypse base. Slice it, plant it, and it would thrive, filling bellies with high yields. Once, she'd sustained an entire defense line with a crate of frost-damaged potatoes. Muli held it up to her face, weaving thin strands of her woodability around the tuber. Soon, a stream of information only she could perceive surfaced in her mind. Ancient era crop, potato, remaining vitality, 12%. Shockingly low. But it was alive. A faint, uncontrollable smile tugged at Muli's lips, mud smearing across her cheeks that she made no move to wipe off. If the radiation levels weren't so lethal here, she would have spun in circles clutching this shriveled potato. Natural crops had all but vanished in the interstellar age. Ancient earth seeds were locked in museum vaults, ordinary citizens never laying eyes on a single specimen. On her very first day stranded on this trash planet, she'd unearthed a viable potato buried beneath mounds of rot. Muli tucked the potato inside her clothing, pressing it tight against her chest. "You're a tough one, and so am I," she murmured softly. "We'll stick together and survive, just you wait." Wind gusted across the garbage heaps, sending sheets of scrap metal tumbling. Her wristband's alarm continued flashing, warning her of dangerously elevated radiation levels in her location. Muli had no intention of planting the potato immediately. The seed was far too precious to waste in poisoned, lifeless dirt. She grabbed her shovel and circled the surrounding area. Every few steps, she knelt to touch the soil, sending her woodability deep down to test contamination levels, moisture, and soil depth. LX-7749 truly lived up to its reputation as a severely polluted junk planet. Most surface soil resembled earth-boiled in toxic venom, pitch black and lifeless. Her ability threads went numb on contact with the toxic particles. Corrosive fluid seeped from leeward trash piles. After walking for more than 10 minutes, Muli halted before a hollow nestled between two mountains of trash. The depression sat low to the ground, sheltered from harsh winds. Overhanging discarded alloy panels blocked a portion of direct radiation, cutting local contamination levels by 30%. The soil remained black, yet faint dampness lingered underground. She glanced up at the rickety alloy slab overhead, mentally planning. It blocked wind and radiation. With minor reinforcement, it would serve as a makeshift roof. Muli nodded, satisfied. She set her backpack down on a relatively clean stone, lined up the 3 nutrient paste bottles, and twisted open only half one, forcing the viscous liquid down her throat with a grimace. A cloying fishy sweet aftertaste coated her tongue, the flavor so repulsive she nearly crushed the shovel's wooden handle in her grip. "Once I grow my first batch of mashed potatoes," she tightened the cap, speaking in a quiet, firm tone, "this garbage paste will only be fit for fertilizer." With enough energy replenished, she set about clearing the hollow. Her bent shovel blade could not shift large chunks of metal, so she started with smaller debris. Scrap plastic, shattered glass, broken microchip casings, all tossed into a separate pile. Any reflective crystalline fragments she found were pocketed alone in her backpack's side pouch. Anything glowing, rare, or seemingly useful had to be stockpiled. It was second nature to her. Soon, she'd cleared a 1 square meter plot. Beneath the surface trash lay compacted, crusty black soil. A single strike of the shovel only scratched a shallow mark. Muli planted the shovel in the dirt beside her, knelt, and pressed both palms flat against the ground. Toxins pricked her palms like thousands of tiny needles burrowing into her flesh. She closed her eyes, channeling her woodability, vivid emerald light spreading up her wrists and seeping inch by inch into the soil. The dead black earth trembled faintly. Invisible toxins were drawn out by her power, condensing into wispy gray-black mist that rose from soil cracks, which she compressed into a dense cloud held in her palms. The toxic energy raged violently, aching her hand bones and beading sweat across her forehead. This body was far weaker than her original apocalypse frame. Though her ability rank remained high, the original host's chronic suppression of her powers and severe malnutrition had crippled her physical foundation. After purifying merely half a foot of soil, her back soaked through. With sweat, the metallic tang of blood filled her throat. Muli gritted her teeth and refused to stop. 1 square meter was all she needed to plant the first potato sprout. If the first shoot survived, there would be a second, a third. Crops would multiply, cleared farmland expand. Forget 3 days, she could put down roots on this trash planet for 3 years. The gray-black toxic mist thickened, dulling the hollow's overwhelming stench. The pitch-black soil along the edges faded, shifting from glossy toxic black to muted dark brown. Moolie's fingers twitched with cramping, and her emerald ability light dimmed significantly. She paused to catch her breath, hurling the compacted toxic mass into a distant scrap metal pit. The toxin blob hit the ground and burned a charred black crater. Vile poison, she muttered a low curse, grabbed her shovel, and turned the freshly purified soil. The dirt remained hard, yet soft enough to slice open with the blade. She crushed clods one by one, picking free glass shards and metal filings. Her side pouch soon bulged with handfuls of unidentified crystalline grains, the empty hollow feeling in her chest easing slightly at the sight of her supplies. Once the soil was fully tilled loose, she carefully pulled out the shriveled potato tuber. Its sprouts were far too weak to risk planting whole. She eyed the bent shovel blade. No knife meant she had to make do. She pressed the cleanest section of the shovel's metal edge against the potato and split it gently, separating 2 chunks each bearing sprouts. The cut flesh looked pale yellow, shockingly low in moisture. Moolie instantly sealed the open wounds with her ability to halt rot. Bear with it, she set the larger chunk into a shallow dug hole. Once I'm well off, you'll grow in the richest, softest farm beds. The hole was shallow, she swept more ability energy through the surrounding soil. To double-check no residual toxins would kill the fragile sprouts, then covered the tuber with loose dirt and pressed her palm to the small plot. She channeled one final surge of wood ability into the ground. Green light showered the soil like fine rain, wrapping around the buried potato chunk. Moolie could feel the near-dead spark of life stir greedily, drinking in the energy as its tiny sprouts unfurled. Dirt smudged her lips, yet her eyes blazed bright with hope. Grow. At that single word, the soil surface bulged upward slightly. Moolie held her breath, fingers still buried in the mud, afraid to move an inch. The potato, trapped beneath garbage for untold years, roused from endless darkness, first pushing aside a speck of loose dirt, then breaking through a hard crust of compacted earth. A tender pale green shoot pierced the soil. Minuscule, delicate, yet its green hue made her heart throb. Moolie lifted a hand to shield it when her pocket's portable terminal suddenly vibrated violently. Its cracked screen lit up automatically, a glaring red pop-up dominating the display. Your survival feed is live. Current view count, 320,000. The terminal's vibrations numbed Moolie's palm. She lifted the screen to her eyes. The live stream had activated automatically, a lens capturing full footage of her. Bullet screen comments flooded nonstop like bursting floodgates. She's still alive somehow? Wait a second, what's she doing kneeling in garbage, worshipping dirt? LOL, the fake heiress has taken up mud play. That faint green glow is such cheap special effects. Does the junk planet stream come with filters? No way. Does she honestly think she can grow crops on LX 7749? Moolie stared hard at the words forcibly broadcast, her knuckles whitening where they gripped the terminal's edge. She dredged the original host's memories to recall the Empire's intimidation policy for exiles. All prisoners dumped on junk planets faced mandatory holographic live streams for their first 7 days. Broadcast across the entire galactic net. Labeled a crime deterrent, the scheme was nothing more than locking humans in a cage for public amusement. Viewers watched them beg, collapse, mutate, and ultimately be swallowed by the wasteland. No wonder the escort had been so smug before departing. This was not exile. It was a stage built for the entire galaxy to laugh at her expense. Moolie propped the terminal against a nearby stone, adjusting its angle to frame the newly sprouted seedling front and center. If they insisted on watching, they'd watch clearly. She did not close the live stream or offer a single word of explanation. Words meant nothing, only ripe crops would prove her point. Seeing her total silence, the bullet screen comments spammed even faster. Has radiation fried her brain? A normal person would search for shelter first. She's taking selfies with mud. How did the Mu family raise such an idiot? Leave the Mu family out of it. Miss Mu Shui is the real heiress. Poor Shui, robbed of 20 years of her identity, and now this fake clogs her trending feed. Moolie did not so much as lift an eyelid. She held her hand over the young sprout, blocking the acidic wind whipping through garbage cracks. She let softwood ability drift down to caress its tender leaf tips. The seedling trembled faintly. Bathed in her energy, Its green vitality surged, its stems stretched taller, two tiny leaves unfurling, their edges still curled from new growth. A single question mark popped up in the live chat. Then a second, a third. Did it move just now? Is my feed lagging? Did it grow taller? This is a hologram live broadcast synced in real time from the desolate star, no lag at all. I recorded the screen. It really grew, from 1 centimeter to 3. Quit fooling around. There are no natural plants left these days. The few specimens in museums only survive thanks to grade A nutrient pots. Muli did not glance at her screen. Her supernatural ability was nearly depleted, and she had to use every last bit of it where it mattered most. Potatoes have a short growth cycle, yet maturing them on a polluted star required far more than this small patch of purified soil. She needed to sustain the roots first, so they could nourish the soil in return and form a tiny self-sustaining cycle. She planted both palms flat on the ground and bent down close to the potato sprout. When she released her wood element affinity, she could sense the plant's faint, wordless cry of hunger. Not an audible sound, but an instinctive demand. It craved water, nutrients, clean earth. Water was nowhere to be found. Muli glanced at the 2.5 bottles of nutrient solution left, her brows slanting downward sharply. Grade D nutrient solutions contained plenty of water. Though its formula tasted revolting, it would tide the sprout over temporarily. She twisted open the half-empty bottle she'd been drinking from, poured a little liquid into her palm, filtered out all the artificial additives with her ability, then dripped the purified fluid slowly onto the roots. The live chat exploded instantly. She's pouring nutrient solution into dirt? What a waste. 3 bottles of life-sustaining rations, wasted on mud? I said 3 days was overestimating her. Is this girl's brain only filled with memories of her wealthy Mu Manor life? Has she forgotten how terrifying starvation is? Muli heard her terminal's speaker recite several top-liked chat messages. She lifted a hand and turned the volume all the way down. Too noisy. Distracting her from farming. Once purified, the grayish liquid turned slightly clear as it seeped into the soil. Sated by water, the potato sprout unfurled its leaves another ring outward. Its stalk thickened from the width of a chopstick to a thumb, shifting from pale lime green to a rich, healthy emerald with a subtle sheen. Sweat streamed down Muli's forehead, and radiation-charged wind chapped her lips dry. She wiped her brow with the back of her hand, smearing a darker streak of mud across her skin. Meanwhile, the live view count kept surging upward. 3.2 million viewers. 5 million. 8 million. On the Star Network trending page, the tag "Fake Heiress Plays in Mud on Desolate Star" gained a brand new associated keyword, green luminescent plant on desolate star. Far away, in a high-rise apartment on the capital star, Mu Shui lounged on a plush white floating sofa, an expensive glass of blue crystal dew resting beside her. She'd just finished a live stream meant to calm her fans, who'd been showering her with compliments, claiming she'd endured unfair treatment yet chosen not to retaliate. Her brokerage robot alerted her that Muli's Exile live stream had skyrocketed in popularity abnormally fast. Mu Shui tapped to pull up the feed. On screen, Muli squatted in a filthy sunken hollow, her cuffs caked in mud, strands of hair plastered to her cheeks by harsh winds. She looked utterly wretched, a stark contrast to the elegant fake heiress. Yet for some unidentifiable reason, Mu Shui's fingers paused mid-stroke against her glass. There was no trace of panic on Muli's face, none of what she'd hoped to see. Her eyes held a terrifying single-minded focus, as if nothing in the entire universe existed besides the tiny sprout at her feet. Watching the flood of question marks filling the chat, Mu Shui's brows drooped faintly. She opened her personal Star Network account and drafted a status post. Poor fake little sister. She's found herself a toy among the garbage heaps. I hope she can find a little joy and not give up on life too soon. The second she hit send, swarms of her fans flooded Muli's live room. Xue is far too kind, still caring about this imposter. Toy, what an accurate description, haha. Don't give this fake heiress any attention. She's just acting crazy to leech off Xue's fame. That sad little weed in her hands, will radiation burn it to ashes any second now? Muli caught sight of Mu Shui's username drifting across the corner of her vision, and her movements faltered for a split second. Lingering emotions belonging to the original host welled up in her chest, sharp and bitter. It was the grief of having her identity stolen, cast down into the abyss. Yet, still craving an explanation for why it all happened. Muli crushed that surge of emotion down. No use asking why. The earth would answer her. Her crops would answer her. She drew a deep breath and channeled every last wisp of her usable ability into the potato sprout's roots. Vivid green light crept upward along its veins, and the entire plant began sprouting new branches at breakneck speed. Leaf after leaf unfurled, the stalk growing tall enough to reach her knees, while roots spread wide beneath the soil like a fine mesh, anchoring firmly to that single square meter of purified earth. In less than 10 minutes, a full, lush potato plant stood tall amid the garbage wasteland. Its green burned bright against the gray desolation. The mockery filling the live chat gradually faded, replaced by countless confused questions. What even is this thing? My dad's a paleobotany researcher. He told me to send him the recording immediately. This can't be special effects. The vein details are too lifelike. Hologram streams don't support post-production edits. I checked the Ancient Earth Flora catalog. This looks like a Solanaceae species? Quit joking. All Ancient Earth crops are classified cultural relics. Where would an exile even get one? Muli sank onto the ground, her arms too sore to lift. She stared at the potato sprout as tenderly as someone guarding a newly hatched chick. The moment a gust of wind blew through, she dragged a scrap of discarded alloy sheet over and wedged it diagonally into the soil to block the wind. The metal slab was heavy, and its sharp edge sliced open the side of her palm. Tiny beads of blood welled to the surface. She wiped them carelessly on her trousers before patting the soil firm again. Hang in there, she whispered quietly. Whether I eat tonight depends entirely on you. Perhaps her ability had pushed the plant past its growth threshold, or perhaps the potato tuber had lain trapped beneath garbage for too long. The sprout's leaves swayed gently, and mounds began bulging upward under the soil. One rounded lump. 2. 3. Fist-sized shapes pushed against the dirt, splitting the topsoil open with faint cracks. The live chat froze for a heartbeat, then question marks flooded the entire screen. Muli gripped her shovel, the handle pressed hard into the fresh cut on her palm, stinging sharply. Still, she tugged her lips upward into a faint smile, positioning the blade carefully beside the roots to dig slowly. Dark brown earth fell away. 3 plump, golden potatoes rolled out onto the ground. When the 3 tubers tumbled to Muli's feet, she sank her fingers straight into the mud without hesitation. Heat and filth no longer mattered. All that counted was their round, heavy weight. Their skins damp with fresh soil, golden flesh dusted with light brown dirt flecks. Amid this black-gray garbage wasteland, they were 3 priceless lifesavers. Muli's throat bobbed. She leaned down and lifted them one by one into her palms. The largest one was bigger than her fist, with thin skin and shallow eyes, radiating a pure, vital warmth that softened her heart. She rubbed its surface clean with her sleeve, brought her nose close, and breathed in a faint, refreshing earthy scent. No rot, no acrid radiation wind, no cloying artificial sweetness from nutrient solutions. It was the smell of real food. Radiation wind stung the corners of Muli's eyes, yet her fingers curled tighter around the tubers. In her past life's apocalypse, a single moldy dried cake sparked deadly fights between 3 separate groups. Now, stranded on a desolate trash planet, she held 3 whole, uncontaminated potatoes in her hands. The chat continued spamming confused queries. What are those round things? They just grew out of the dirt? This can't be hologram props, right? That strange colored lump in the fake heiress's hands, is it edible? Did I just see her holding back tears? Stop the act. There's no food on Desolate Star. This is all scripted content. Muli ignored the chatter entirely. She tucked the 3 potatoes deep inside her backpack, lining the pocket with tattered cloth for cushioning. She set the smallest tuber apart in a separate corner and pressed her palm gently over it. This one was off limits. Seed stock for next planting. The second tuber was also reserved, tomorrow's meal. Anyone who's known true hunger understands the vast difference between holding food in your hands and having food in your stomach. Muli stared at the largest potato, her nerves pulled taut for a long moment before she relented. She would eat one. Just one. Her ability was completely drained, her body weak and lightheaded. Without genuine carbohydrates to replenish her energy, she wouldn't even be able to tend her soil tonight. A strong gust of wind could blow her straight into a garbage gully. Grabbing her shovel, Muli turned to rummage through a nearby scrap pile. She sorted out dry packaging fragments, half-charred fiberboard, and segments of carbonized piping salvaged from broken old machinery. She discarded anything coated in oil, anything that emitted white smoke, anything reeking of harsh chemical fumes. The live audience watched in utter confusion. Now she's digging through trash again? First growing a weed, now scavenging scrap. She's got a full routine going. Wait, she looks like she's building something. Mooley used her shovel to carve a shallow pit beside her purified soil patch, then wedged 3 sturdy alloy panels diagonally into the ground to form a crude stove. The lopsided structure was rickety, yet it blocked the wind effectively. She knelt by the pit, stuffed dry trash scraps inside, and ignited the pile using the emergency electric spark on the back of her terminal. The flames burned pale blue at first, shifting to a warm golden yellow once they caught onto the carbonized fiber. That small flame burned startlingly bright against the hazy gray skies of the desolate star. Mooley buried the largest potato along the edge of the fire pit, then shoveled ash over it to trap heat. Once finished, she sat off to the side, knees drawn to her chest, watching the flame with more focus than someone staring at a pile of star coins. You wouldn't understand, she muttered softly to herself. Potatoes taste best roasted until their skins wrinkle up. Her terminal picked up her quiet words and broadcast them live to the stream. The chat fell silent for a beat before erupting in mocking laughter. She's talking to a dirt-covered lump? Tastes good with wrinkled skin? She's actually planning to eat that thing? Someone save her? Has radiation driven her insane? Day 1 of Desolate Star Survival. Fake heiress roasts unidentified object. Mooley reached out and turned the speaker volume down another notch. Laugh all you want. Just wait until the aroma hits you. Don't choke on your own saliva later. The fire crackled faintly. Moisture seeped from the potato skin under hot ash, and its outer layer slowly wrinkled. A faint, pure roasted scent drifted out of the embers, instantly loosening the tight tension coiled in Mooley's shoulders. She twitched her nose, her eyes lighting up brighter. 60% cooked. A little longer. View counts kept climbing, from 5 million to 8 million. Then dozens of recording accounts reposted clips with increasingly absurd headlines. Exiled grows unknown plant on desolate star, fake heiress roasts crop she cultivated herself, hologram footage, suspected ancient earth crop discovered. Mockers, scientific researchers, and Mouchouez fans all flooded into the stream. The chat wall chattered nonstop, filled with insults, questions, and onlookers simply here for entertainment. Just as the potato skin crisped to a dark golden brown, a system prompt flashed across the live feed. High-intensity edible aroma source detected. Holographic scent sharing function activated automatically. Mooley froze mid-shovel stir. Before she could disable the feature, the warm roasted aroma flooded every Star Network terminal connected to her stream. Roasted potato scent lacked the overpowering richness of braised meat or heavy savory sauces, yet it carried a raw, unpretentious comfort. Crisp charred skin wrapped soft, fluffy flesh, the steam carrying the sweet, earthy fragrance of unprocessed grain, like a warm palm settling gently over the stomachs of viewers. The live room descended into total chaos. What is this smell? My nutrient solution suddenly tastes disgusting. I just opened a premium strawberry nutrient pack, now it smells like cheap plastic. Please split it open, let us see the inside. Can I place an order for this? Where's the purchase link? My toddler started crying and licking the screen to catch the scent. Viewership rocketed past 5 million, 8 million, 17 million, 30 million. Trending keywords shot upward one after another, and back-end lag made the chat messages load with a noticeable delay. Mooley stared at the 30 million viewer count for 2 quiet seconds. 30 million pairs of noses, all breathing in the scent of her single potato. She fished the tuber out of the ash with her shovel, yanking her fingertips back from the searing heat and wrapping a scrap cloth around it to hold safely. Its skin was deep gold, split open by thin cracks, pale creamy steam billowing outward from within. The chat spammed messages frantically. Split it open. Just one glance inside, I beg you. Don't hog it all for yourself, miss. I officially stop insulting you, just let us smell it longer. Mooley held the potato up toward the camera and split it gently apart. A faint crisp crack echoed as the skin split, revealing soft golden fluffy flesh inside. Sweet hot steam billowed outward in a rush. She leaned down to blow on the steaming flesh, flecks of ash dusting her lips, her eyes crinkling into a satisfied curved line. She took her first bite, the fluffy flesh melted soft across her tongue. Warm, fragrant, solidly filling. No seasonings, not a grain of salt in sight, but for Mooley, who'd survived on gray artificial nutrient solution, this single mouthful pulled her back from the edge of despair, reminding her what it meant to truly live. She swallowed slowly, the empty hollow ache in her chest filled with gentle warmth. Delicious. Those two words hit the live stream, and the chat spiraled completely out of control. Stop talking, I can't stand this anymore. She's eating it so well, my nutrient solution feels like punishment now. Ancient Earth people ate this every day? They were so lucky. I'll pay 10 star coins just to smell the next bite. Don't embarrass yourself, I'll pay 50. Mooli ate slowly and thoroughly, not wasting a scrap of charred skin. She blew ash off each piece and chewed every bit clean. Even tiny crumbs that fell onto her tattered cloth were swept up with her fingertips and popped into her mouth. Rule 1 of wasteland survival: never waste food. Half the potato gone, warmth spread back to her hands and feet, and her mind cleared significantly. She wrapped the remaining half tightly in cloth to save for nighttime. As she bent to tie the cloth closed, her terminal chimed with a crisp notification. Tip received, 100 star coins. A viewer's comment popped up beneath the alert. Please roast another one, I'll pay just to smell it. Mooli stared at the tip notification, her fingers pausing mid-knot on the cloth. 100 star coins. She blinked once, double-checking the number, then brushed her thumb along the cracked edge of her terminal. The glass dug into her skin, yet the 100 star coin sat plainly visible in her back-end balance. The chat continued begging relentlessly. Roast another one, miss. I'll line up just to catch the scent. 100's nothing. I'll pay 200. Ignore them, show us the rest of your potatoes first. Does she even understand how valuable star coins are? Mooli understood perfectly well. Raised in the Mu Manor, she'd seen countless luxury gowns and private starfighters. But survival on the desolate star followed an entirely different price scale. She needed to know exactly what 100 star coins could buy here. She secured her leftover roasted potato deep inside her inner pocket, covered the stove fire with scrap metal to ensure no flames spread to her purified soil, then opened the Star Network shopping mall. She typed water purifier into the search bar. Rows of products loaded onto the screen. The cheapest portable model cost 5,000 star coins, filter cartridges sold separately. Mooli's finger hovered over the price tag, her brows slanting low. 5,000. She searched basic survival pod next. The cheapest secondhand unit was 50,000 star coins. The product note added, radiation isolation coating not included, installation fee separate. She scrolled further, radiation-proof suits, grow lamps, substitute nutrient soil, desolate star air filters. Every price tag struck her like a hammer to the forehead. 100 star coins? Not enough to buy a single decent reinforcing nail on the star. Mooli closed the shopping mall, glanced down at her tattered backpack, then back at her lopsided little stove beside the soil patch. She was broke. Far poorer than she'd imagined. Yet another notification pinged her balance backend. Tip received, 10 star coins. Tip received, 50 star coins. Tip received, 100 star coins. Tip received, 20 star coins. Alert after alert popped up, like tiny raindrops hitting parched cracked earth. Mooli's cold fingers curled slowly around her terminal, her gaze sharpening into clear, focused resolve. Single tips were trivial. But thousands of viewers adding up, their donations would add up fast. 30 million viewers. If every person sent just 1 star coin, she could afford a full survival pod instantly. Of course, Mooli knew better than to indulge such fantasies. Star Network viewers might crave the scent, yet few would actually spend money. Still, a viable path had opened before her. Aroma could earn currency. Crops could trade for vital survival supplies. She bit another small mouthful of the leftover roasted potato, chewing slowly. The tuber had cooled slightly, its fluffy flesh still rich with charred skin fragrance. Every bite reminded her, stay grounded, don't get carried away, focus first on surviving. The audience watched her eat, their stomachs twisting with longing through the scent share feed. Why is she still eating? Streamer, slow your chewing, I just turned on Scent Sync. I officially break up with my nutrient solution. Is this truly an ancient earth crop? Does anyone with expertise know for sure? Moments later, a verified long comment floated across the live chat. Plant Museum intern researcher, based on morphology and growth patterns, this specimen is suspected to be Solanum tuberosum from ancient earth, commonly called potato. All preserved museum samples are sterilized. No official records document living viable specimens existing anywhere. Once this comment shot to the top of the chat, the live room erupted like a disturbed beehive. A living plant? Does that mean what she's eating is a cultural relic? It's not a relic, it's food. Ancient Earth humans relied on this as their staple crop. What's a staple crop? Something you can eat every single day? Museums don't even have living samples, and she grew this out of garbage heaps? Quit joking. If this is real, agricultural research institutes will lose their minds. Mooley's gaze locked onto the phrase staple crop, and the quiet spark of hope in her chest burned steadier. Exactly. A staple crop. Food that could fill bellies would always be far more valuable than a fleeting pleasant aroma. She finished the last scraps of her roasted potato's charred skin, too reluctant to swallow the tiny remaining bit, and wrapped it away for later. Then she pulled out her 2 fresh, unroasted potatoes. The camera zoomed in automatically, and the chat screamed in excitement. Here we go. She's roasting another. My money's ready. Please turn sent sharing back on. Don't roast it. If this is a living ancient Earth crop, it should be sent to research facilities for preservation. Sent where? She grew it with her own hands. Mooley lifted a hand to partially block the camera, her voice quiet yet commanding enough to quiet the chaotic stream. I won't roast these. The chat flooded with even more confused messages. Mooley lifted the smaller tuber, examining its growth eyes carefully. Threads of her wood element ability wrapped gently around it, revealing strong, vibrant life activity within. She tucked it deep inside her backpack, wrapping it 3 separate times with tattered cloth, soft plastic scraps, and clean topsoil for protection. This one is seed stock for planting. She picked up the second potato and set it apart in a separate pocket. This one is tomorrow's meal. Whales flooded the live stream bullet comments. Don't do this. I'll pay extra star coins. Streamer, do you even understand traffic? Roast it right now, your view count will hit legendary heights. How can she resist the temptation? I'd pay 300 star coins just to catch a whiff. Mooley glanced at that comment and did a quick mental calculation. Was 300 star coins a lot? Absolutely. It could buy several bottles of low-grade nutrient paste or a set of basic tool parts. But cooking the seed potato meant sacrificing the vast crop fields she could grow in the future. She could crave the potato, the audience could go crazy, but she couldn't afford short-sighted choices. This is the only one for today. Mooley zipped her backpack shut firmly, her tone crisp. Seeds are worth more than all gifts combined. The comment section split into 2 opposing camps the second she finished speaking. One group kept begging for a whiff, while the other finally caught on. She's so level-headed. I'd probably lose my mind over all those gifts. She's totally right, seeds beat virtual tips any day. Is she planning to grow a whole field on this wasteland planet? Mooley offered no further explanation. She pulled up her terminal balance dashboard. The numbers kept climbing and scattered gifts had already added up to over 3,000 star coins. She was still short of the funds for a water purifier, but for the first time on this barren planet, she saw tangible hope within her grasp. She jotted the 3,000+ star coin total in her terminal memo, then opened a new supplies checklist. 1. Water purifier. 2. Protective tarpaulin. 3. Farming tools. 4. Basic fencing. After writing the list, she stared at her single square meter of purified soil, then scanned her surroundings. The hollow nook tucked between trash heaps was small, but if she purified a little land each day, she could expand it to 10 square meters, then 100. Potatoes would spawn more potatoes, grain would multiply into abundant harvests. Once her first batch of seed potatoes matured, she could divide the land into separate plots. Purified soil couldn't go to waste. She'd need to find a stable water source, build shelters, and safely dispose of concentrated pollution masses instead of dumping them carelessly. The more she planned, the calmer her heartbeat grew. In her past life, she'd started with nothing but a rusted, broken shovel. This lifetime, she held plant superpowers, live stream gift revenue, and an entire abandoned planet to herself. It was polluted and desolate, yet no one would compete with her for land. That was more than enough. She stamped out the campfire completely, not discarding a single ash. She sifted out clean plant ash residue and stored it away. Though the fuel came from contaminated sources and couldn't be used as fertilizer directly, it might prove useful after purification. The audience stared in shock through the screen. She's even saving the ash? She's like one of those hoarders who fills every storage space and still wants more. Confirmed severe hoarding disorder. LOL, but it makes total sense on a wasteland planet. Mooley slung her backpack over her shoulders, grabbed her shovel, and began patrolling the edge of the hollow nook. Spawning the potato plant had drained much of her supernatural power. She couldn't purify large swathes of land today, but she could map out the terrain first. She noted every patch with mild pollution, every windbreak spot, potential water pooling areas, and ideal locations for future greenhouses. Her live stream camera wobbled as she walked, forcing viewers to watch her rummage through piles of garbage. She collected a length of metal rods suitable for framing, 2 mostly intact waterproof tarps, and a bundle of barely corroded rope. For every item she picked up, she brushed off the grime, sorted it, and stuffed it into her backpack or hauled it back to the hollow. When she reached the edge of the trash mountain, her shovel's tip clanged against a hard object with a sharp ding. Mooley halted in her tracks. She knelt down and scraped away the top layer of black soil with her hands. A rusted metal corner peeked out, lined with ancient ceiling grooves. This was a storage crate. The bullet comments instantly exploded with excitement. She found another item? A Wasteland Planet treasure chest? The streamer's luck is absurd. Mooley didn't rush to pry it open. She pulled off her gloves and pressed her palm flat against the metal lid. Cold metal seeped into her skin as her wood element power seeped gently through every crack. A moment later, her breath hitched softly. Life signals lingered inside the crate. More than one type, too. Mooley's hand stayed pressed to the lid, her fingertips tightening instinctively. The life signatures were faint, muffled by thick metal and decades of accumulated pollution, like embers buried deep in ash. Yet there were countless tiny signals clustered together, huddled quietly within the crate. Seeds. The thought flashed through her mind, making her heart thud violently. She quickly scraped away all surrounding black soil and dug along the crate's edges with her shovel. The crate was buried fairly deep, wedged tight by discarded plastic and hardened mud. Every pry sent a sharp jolt through the shovel handle, stinging the unhealed wounds on her palms. The comment section had been filled with jokes before, but their tone shifted as they watched her frantic digging. She looks really tense. Could there be mutated pollution monsters inside? Quit digging. Ancient relics on wasteland planets are deadly. Her hands are all cut up. Can't she bandage them first? Mooley paid no attention to the stream's chatter. Her shovel's blade was badly bent, so she shifted angles to loosen soil from underneath the crate. More rusted metal surfaced as the black mud fell away. The crate was small, 1/2 meter square. Its surface markings corroded beyond recognition, leaving only blurry faded letters. She bit down on her sleeve and tore free a tangled old cable, scraping a raw red gash across the back of her hand. The crate shifted loose. Mooley wedged the shovel beneath its base, leaned her full weight onto the handle, and pried upward. The metal crate lifted slowly from the mud, dragging clumps of rotted soil and dry, brittle plant roots along with it. "Come out." She whispered the 2 words, steadying her stance before heaving it all the way over. The metal crate crashed onto the ground, sending a cloud of black dust billowing outward. Mooley didn't open it right away. Instead, she dragged it back to the edge of her purified soil. The pollution concentration here was lighter. If seeds were truly inside, every bit of reduced contamination boosted their survival chances. She pulled the rope from her backpack and wiped the crate's exterior clean, then sent a thin thread of supernatural power to probe the rusted lock. It was sealed shut, corroded solid through years of decay. Mooley stared at the rusted clasp, her gaze sharp as someone facing an unyielding hard bone. She lifted the shovel, jammed its blade into the gap between the lock and lid, and pressed down hard. Crack. The first layer of rust split apart. She repositioned the shovel and pressed again. The grating metal screech made viewers cringe, and the bullet comments grew tense. "Easy now, don't ruin whatever's inside." Why am I holding my breath watching a live stream? She's prying it open like she's breaking into her own gold vault. If these are genuine ancient relics, their value is unimaginable. Sweat dropped down Mooley's temple, mixing with dust to leave a dark streak on her cheek. She didn't wipe it away, bearing down on the shovel a 3rd time. The lock snapped clean off. The crate lid popped open a narrow slit, releasing a stale, dry scent. No rot, no acrid radiation fumes, only the faint smell of aged metal and paper sealed away for centuries. Mooley breathed slowly and evenly. She pried the lid fully open with the shovel's tip. Neat rows of sealed pouches lay inside. Their transparent outer film had yellowed with age but remained mostly intact. Each pouch bore a paper tag printed with Old Earth script. When Mooley read the first line, her fingertips trembled faintly. Emergency Survival Seed Bank. A lump blocked her throat. In her past life, the base's greatest fear wasn't zombie hordes breaching the walls. It was the destruction of their seed vault. Without seeds, even towering walls only trapped people waiting to starve. She'd watched super-powered warriors fight to the death over a half-pack of cabbage seeds and seen elderly survivors stitch 3 rice grains into their collars, clutching them until their last breath. Now, an entire crate of seeds sat before her. Muli reached for the first pouch, moving so gently she feared waking something fragile. Her power swept over the tag and tiny grains inside, pulling up clear data. Wheat, viability, 8. She pressed the sealed pouch to her chest, resting her palm over the tiny kernels through the plastic. Wheat. It could be ground into flour for flatbread, steamed buns, congee. If just one stalk sprouted, she could harvest seeds for future crops. The second pouch. Rice, viability, 5. Muli's eyes lit up brilliantly. Her lips parted, and she murmured quietly after a long pause, "You're stubborn little survivors, aren't you?" Rice was notoriously hard to grow on this wasteland planet. Water scarcity was the biggest hurdle. Yet these seeds still retained life. Where there was life, there was a way. She could purify water sources, dig rainwater cisterns, build simple greenhouses, and tackle each step one by one. Third pouch. Cabbage, viability, 15. Muli let out a soft, genuine laugh. It wasn't a performative smile for the audience, but the deep relief of someone starved for hot food. Every bone in her body relaxing at the sight of hope. Cabbage was perfect. Fast-growing, stir-fried, stewed, fermented into sour, preserved vegetables. Sour cabbage had sustained her through 3 brutal winter months in her past life. The tangy aroma had even fueled her through her darkest dreams. Fourth pouch. Chili peppers, viability, 20. Muli brushed her fingers over the pouch's seal, her gaze growing brighter still. Chili peppers. With these, plain baked potatoes wouldn't be bland anymore. She could dust chili powder on spuds, make spicy fermented cabbage, and mask the gamey taste of mutated meat later on. The bullet comments shifted from confused question marks to lengthy heated discussions. What are all those small pouches? Why is she grinning like she struck a mineral vein? That's old earth writing. My grandpa studied a little. I think the tag says wheat. What's wheat? Is it edible? It's edible. One of old earth's staple grains. I saw documentaries about it. Any botanists watching? Explain this for us. Muli kept sorting through the pouches one by one. Tomato, viability, 11. Cucumber, viability, 9. Corn, viability, 7. Soybean, viability, 6. Grape, viability, 3. For every pouch she pulled out, she wrapped it gently with her power to check for rips in the seal. She set high viability seeds to one side and tucked the low viability ones close to her body, shielding them from any pollution exposure. The grape seeds only held a mere 3 viability, fragile as a fraying thread. Yet Muli handled this pouch with the utmost care of all. Fruits were a luxury in the post-apocalypse, a myth across interstellar space. If she could coax these grapes to grow, the entire interstellar network would fight wars over a single cluster of grapes. No way that would happen. She'd build 3 layers of fencing around the grapevines later. Then cultivate 2 mutated carnivorous vines to guard them. Anyone who dared steal a single grape cluster would become fertilizer for her fields. Viewers flooded the stream with gifts, far larger sums than earlier. Will you sell those seed pouches? Name your price. Don't sell them. Preserve the seeds first. I'm an assistant researcher at the Capital Planet Academy of Agriculture. Streamer, cease opening the crate immediately and preserve its original state. We will file a request to intervene. Intervene for what? She dug this up on unclaimed wasteland land. Does she actually plan to grow all these herself? Muli's fingers paused when she spotted the word intervene. She quickly gathered all seed pouches and clutched them tight to her chest. She lifted her head to face the camera, dust smudged across her cheeks, her gaze unwavering. I won't sell them, hand them over, or share them with anyone. She hugged the seed crate to her body like a squirrel guarding its entire stash of pine nuts, refusing to let even a corner of the crate show to the lens. If anyone wants produce, wait until I harvest my crops. The comment section fell silent for a beat, then exploded with even more frantic scrolling. Wow, she's really committed to growing these herself. This girl guards her food sources like a lioness. Somehow I fully believe she can pull this off. Ever since the potato sprout, I've had faith too. Muli ignored the stream chatter entirely. She reordered every seed pouch by viability and priority. She lined the crate's base with ragged cloth and prepared to transfer all seeds deep into her backpack's innermost pocket. The metal crate was worn but still airtight enough to serve as a temporary seed safe. As she brushed dust off the crate's bottom, her fingertips brushed a thin, flat sheet. It wasn't one of the seed pouches. She froze, sliding the sheet out from the very bottom layer. It was a yellowed paper slip, pressed flat for decades, its edges brittle and crumbling. A line of old Earth script was printed across it, ink faded but still legible. Muli held the slip close to the faint firelight, reading every word slowly. LX 7749, site of the Third Era Ecological Experiment Base. Muli stared rigidly at the line of text, her fingers tightening around the paper slip little by little. LX 7749, site of the Third Era Ecological Experiment Base. Those dozen words burned themselves into her mind like a red-hot iron brand. An ecological experiment base. This wasn't a random garbage dump or abandoned desolate planet. It was a specialized ancient research station built solely for ecological trials. That meant beneath the layers of pollution and waste covering this land, there could be more seed vaults. Cultivation pods, experimental greenhouses, even intact full-cycle water circulation machinery buried underground. Muli's throat tightened, her heart pounding wildly. She glanced down at her live stream terminal. Bullet comments continued scrolling nonstop. Why has she gone quiet all of a sudden? What's written on that paper? Show us. Don't hide it from us, we're all curious. Is it some ancient old Earth treasure map? Muli lifted her eyelids slightly, shifting the terminal so the camera could not capture the slip. She moved quickly, folding the yellowed paper twice and tucking it deep into her inner clothing pocket, weighed down with a scrap of torn cloth. Only after hiding it securely did she tilt the empty crate base toward the camera. Nothing else here. Her voice stayed steady, but one hand pressed lightly over the pocket holding the slip. This secret couldn't be shared. Not now, at the very least. Over 20 million viewers watched this live stream. If she uttered the words, ecological experiment base, countless institutes, conglomerates, and corporations would descend within hours. She didn't even have a proper shelter yet, only a bench shovel and one tiny patch of purified soil to her name. She could possess these priceless treasures, but first she had to hide them safely. The audience clearly didn't buy her lie. Nothing left? I saw her slip something into her clothes just now. You've changed, streamer, you're hiding things from us now. Can you blame her? If you dug up ancient seeds, would you broadcast their location to the whole star network? No need to rush, she's stuck on this planet. The seeds aren't going anywhere. A faint twitch tugged at Muli's lips at that last comment. Aren't going anywhere? That was far from certain. Once she turned this polluted wasteland into fertile farmland, people across the star network would beg on their knees for access to this planet. But fantasies were useless right now. Her top priority was expanding her purified soil. 1 square meter was far too cramped, barely enough space for her potatoes. To trial cabbage and wheat, she needed at least 5 full square meters of clean, safe topsoil. Muli latched the crate lid shut again, wrapped it twice in ragged cloth, and stowed it under a metal slab beside her planned shelter spot. Still unsatisfied, she dragged a heavy broken mech armor fragment to weigh it down completely. The viewers watching winced at her extreme caution. She guards those seeds like they're her lifeline. Her protective instinct over her crops is weirdly endearing. Endearing? Try stealing 1 pack of cabbage seeds from her and see what happens. Muli paid them no mind. She grabbed her shovel and walked to the edge of her purified plot, sketching a rough boundary with the shovel tip. 5 square meters. On a normal farm, this amount of land wouldn't even make a single small vegetable bed. But on LX 7749, this was a living path she'd carved forcefully from toxic dead earth. Her first shovel stroke hit hard black soil with a dull thud. The top layer was crusty as burnt charcoal. Her bent shovel blade only scraped off thin flakes of dark mud. Muli knelt, pressing both palms flat against the ground, channeling her wood element power deep into the earth. Toxic contaminants swarmed her power instantly. Fine, sharp, sticky toxins, like thousands of poison needles, crept up her veins toward her wrists. Muli gritted her teeth softly. She didn't rush to blast the toxins away head-on. Instead, she split her power into thin strands, circling the contaminated mass from the edges. The dark gray poisons peeled away bit by bit, congealing into thumb-sized toxic clumps. 1 clump, 2 clumps, 3 clumps. She tossed each toxic blob into a distant waste pit. Every blob that landed seared black marks onto discarded scrap metal. Fewer mocking comments filled the stream. The pollution concentration here is absolutely insane. Are red rashes spreading across her hands? She's still digging? Won't she stop to rest? Don't bother trying to convince her. Farmers lose all sense of time once they start tending land. Mooley heard the automated comment reader blaring from her terminal, yet she never paused her work. She wanted to rest, desperately. But dusk was fast approaching. Temperatures plummeted sharply after dark on this wasteland planet, and toxic pollution winds grew far more violent. She had to finish expanding the soil before nightfall and build a windbreak shelter. By the time she finished purifying the second square meter, sweat soaked her forehead, and she kept her breathing shallow to conserve energy. At the third square meter, her supernatural power began to falter. Her fingertips clenched repeatedly, old wounds on her palms burning as toxins stung exposed flesh. She pulled out the leftover half-baked potato, breaking off a small chunk to chew. The cold potato lacked the fragrant warmth of a fresh roast, yet it remained soft and nourishing. The carbohydrates settled in her stomach like dry firewood tossed into a dying hearth. Mooley closed her eyes, swallowed the bite, and broke off another piece. The bullet comments erupted instantly. She treasures every bite of that potato so much. I swear I can smell it through the screen, cold or not, it smells amazing. That's only half a potato, and it's all her fuel for backbreaking labor. Suddenly, I can't bring myself to laugh at her anymore. Mooley ate half of the leftover potato, wrapping the last tiny fragment back up carefully. She couldn't finish it all. She might need a bite to sustain herself through the night. She resumed purifying the soil. When she reached the fourth square meter, the sky turned a heavy, murky gray. Wind howled through the trash mountain crevices, sending scrap alloy sheets clattering against one another. Mooley dragged discarded metal panels to stand as wind barriers along the exposed side of her purified plot, propping them up with bent metal rods for support. The second she finished the fifth square meter, she collapsed onto the ground. Her arms ached relentlessly, her fingertips trembling nonstop, and the wind chapped her lips dry. 5 square meters of rich dark soil stretched out amid the endless garbage wasteland. Its color unremarkable, yet its pure, toxin-free earth stood out starkly against the desolation. Mooley stared at the patch for a long moment, then reached out to brush her palm over the loose topsoil. You've got a home to grow in now. She spoke to the seeds tucked safely in her crate. The live stream fell silent for a short moment. Then gift notifications flooded the screen one after another. Gift received, 20 star coins. Gift received, 50 star coins. Gift received, 100 star coins. Message: I don't fully understand everything, but it feels like she's slowly bringing this dead wasteland planet back to life. Mooley glanced at the notifications and didn't turn down the gifts. Thanks. She'd accept every coin sent her way. She would save where she could, and take every resource offered to her. She was so penniless right now that she would pick up even a single screw. She had no right to act high and mighty. The sky darkened further, and the temperature plummeted fast. Mooley rubbed her arms and set about building a makeshift shack. Every scrap of material for the shelter had been fished out of garbage heaps: 2 half-human-tall metal sheets, a torn waterproof tarpaulin riddled with burn holes, frames, and rags. First, she drove the metal sheets diagonally into the soil to form a windproof corner, then wedged the frames across the top to hold them steady. The tarpaulin was caked in filth, so she swept her supernatural power over it briefly to strip away the most hazardous toxic contaminants before draping it over the frame. A gust of wind hit, and the shack wobbled unsteadily. Mooley stared at it for 2 full seconds, then dragged over a heavy chunk of scrap to weigh down its edges. Hold up for tonight, I'll reinforce you tomorrow. The livestream comment section blew up with laughter. She talks to her shack so naturally. The seeds have farmland, the potatoes have a plot, and now she's got her own little hut too. Wasteland survival game progress. 1 SQM farmland upgraded to 5 SQM. Ramshackle hut unlocked. Anyone make a group chat? I want to follow her journey. Moments later, identical messages flooded the live chat nonstop. Mooley Wasteland Survival Discussion Group is live. Come watch her farm. Group 2 is full. Join Group 3 fast. Place bets. Will she plant cabbages or wheat tomorrow? I'm betting on cabbages. The way she stares at cabbage seeds is like staring at her own kids. Mooley caught sight of the word cabbage and instinctively patted the spot where her seed box lay hidden. She truly planned to grow cabbages first. They sprouted fast, their leaves were edible. They produced new seeds, and she could boil them into soup. But water supplies were far too scarce. She just needed to make it through this night. She dragged her backpack into the shack, tucking the seed box all the way at the back, and positioned the potatoes right against her chest where she could feel them. Her terminal was propped up by the entrance, its camera facing outward to capture her cleared farm plot. Once night fully descended, the bitter cold of the dead star seeped up from the ground itself. Mooley wrapped all the tattered rags around her body and stuffed scraps into the gaps between the metal sheets. Yet acrid wind still whistled through, stinging her ears raw. She curled up inside the shack, one hand resting on the seed box. From the garbage mountains outside came occasional clangs of metal and distant shrill screeches of unknown creatures. The live stream view count barely dropped, holding steady at around 20 million. Countless viewers kept their holographic displays running to keep her company through the night. This place is terrifying after dark. I'm sitting in a heated room on the capital planet, and I'm freezing just watching. Will she sleep too deeply and miss danger? Quiet everyone, let her rest. She's worn out completely today. Mooley's eyelids grew heavy. Waves of exhaustion crashed over her from draining her supernatural power. Yet her body dared not fully relax. She laid her shovel crosswise beside her, fingers curled loosely around its handle, half asleep as she strained to listen to every sound outside. She lost track of time when the ground rumbled faintly once. Mooley's eyes flew wide open. Heavy, labored panting echoed just outside the shack, drawing closer and closer through the black night, one ragged breath at a time. Mooley's fingers tightened around the shovel handle, slowing her breathing to near silence. Footsteps outside drew nearer still. Every heavy step sent a faint tremor through the metal sheets. It sounded as if something massive tramped across gravel and discarded scrap. The panting was thick and heavy, carrying a damp, fishy stench that drifted in through the tarp's cracks. Her terminal's camera was still rolling live. The Night Owl viewers erupted in panic first. What's that noise? Wake up. There's something out there. I cranked the brightness all the way up. I swear I see a shadow. Run, streamer, run. Mooley did not move. Run? It was pitch black outside, nothing but toxic garbage piles stretching everywhere. She knew the terrain too poorly to risk running. She tilted her head and peered through the narrow gaps between the shack's metal panels. Pale moonlight spilled over the edge of her cleared farmland. A towering dark silhouette lumbered slowly into view. It dwarfed ordinary wild boars by a huge margin, its shoulder height nearly reaching Mooley's chest, its build comparable to a young calf. A humped ridge ran down its spine, its skin rough and black crisscrossed with ash-gray radiation markings. Curved tusks jutted from its jaw like twin scimitars, thick mucus dripping from their roots. Mooley's palms grew slick with tension. A mutated wild boar. These beasts were notoriously vicious on the wasteland. She sent a wisp of her wood-based supernatural sense outward, only to be slammed back by the creature's feral, roiling life force. Its body churned with chaotic toxic radiation energy, paired with terrifying brute muscular strength. Her supernatural power was completely depleted, and all she had for defense was a beat-up old shovel. Fight it head-on? That would only serve as a midnight snack for the boar. The livestream descended into total chaos. What monster is that? A mutated tusk boar. I saw it in the Hazardous Creature Encyclopedia. We're doomed. This thing can bash through low-grade protective barriers. Is this Exile livestream really gonna broadcast her death live? Where's rescue support? Is anyone coming to save her? There's no rescue for exiles on this dead star. When that last comment shot to the top of the chat, the entire livestream fell deathly quiet for a beat. It hit most viewers all at once. Mooley was no ordinary wilderness streamer. She was an exile abandoned on this dead, toxic star. No rescue team would ever be dispatched for her sake. Inside the shack, Mooley slowly stroked the shovel's handle with her thumb, forcing herself to push her terror aside and think clearly. The boar wasn't charging straight for the shack. It was sniffing the soil. The mutated boar halted beside her 5-square-meter cleared farm plot, lowering its head to root at the dirt with its snout. Mooley's heart seized with agony. Don't dig that up. That plot had cost her an entire afternoon of exhausting purification work. The pig's rough snout flipped up a clod of soil, and Mooley's fingernails dug painfully into her palms. She nearly charged out shovel in hand, but reined herself in at the last second. Her life came first. The farmland mattered too, but her life mattered more. The mutated boar circled the cleared plot twice, swishing its long, thick tail back and forth, its tusks glinting cold silver in the moonlight. It made no move to attack. It lowered its head to inhale the scent of clean soil again, rumbling low grunts deep in its throat. The next second, It flopped heavily onto its side with a dull thud that shook the very edge of her farmland. Muli nearly snapped the shovel's wooden handle in her grip. The beast was rolling all over her purified soil, rubbing its spine against the clean dirt, kicking its hooves up toward the sky. Huffing contentedly as if in pure bliss, its radiation-stained hide scraped across the treated earth, and Muli could sense the toxic contamination creeping back to poison the land she'd cleaned. Her heart ached so badly her vision swam. The live stream fell silent for a heartbeat, then comments exploded across the screen. What on earth is it doing? Is it bathing? No, it's enjoying the clean soil. Thank the stars she didn't get attacked. Has this pig gained sentience? It knows clean dirt feels good. But it's ruining her farm plot. The streamer looks ready to slaughter it. Muli drew a deep, steady breath. Slaughtering the boar was tempting. But not right now. She watched the massive beast's every movement, her mind racing a mile a minute. It craved purified clean soil. That meant her cleared farmland would draw more mutated creatures in the future. Terrible news. Yet a slim opportunity presented itself in this moment. The mutated boar was not in a violent rage. It had been lured here solely by the clean soil to soothe its radiation poisoning. If she offered it something else to eat, she might lead it away. Muli's hand drifted to her chest. Tucked there remained her last half potato. To be precise, a raw half potato she'd rationed and saved bit by bit. It was meant to be her sole ration for tomorrow, and it was the only bait she had to offer right now. She ground her teeth together, heavy with reluctance. She hated to waste it. When viewers spotted her pulling the potato out, the entire chat held its collective breath. What's she planning? Is she gonna hurl the potato at that giant pig? A tiny half potato against that monster? The potato will be gone before the pig feels a thing. Don't do it. That's her only food supply. Muli wrapped the potato scrap in tattered cloth and flicked it gently through the shack's crack. The half potato rolled over gravel and skidded to a stop right on the edge of the farm plot. The mutated boar's ears twitched sharply. Its cloudy, tiny eyes locked onto the potato scrap. Muli pressed herself flat into the shadows, her palms slick with cold sweat. The boar rose to its feet and padded over, snuffling cautiously at the potato. Instead of gobbling it down instantly, it lifted its head warily to stare straight at the shack. Muli tensed every muscle in her body. She fully suppressed all traces of her supernatural power. Masking herself like a harmless stone, only the faint clean scent of raw plant matter from the half potato drifted on the night breeze toward the beast. The mutated boar sniffed the potato once more. In an instant, its massive jaws snapped shut, and the potato vanished without a trace. A hollow ache opened up in Muli's chest. Her half ration, her breakfast for tomorrow, gone. Yet after swallowing the potato, the boar let out a clear, satisfied grunt. It licked its tusks and rooted at the dirt again, as if searching for another scrap to eat. Muli's eyelid twitched. There's no more, truly none left. If you dare dig up my farmland again, sooner or later I'll turn you into braised pork. She repeated the vow slowly in her head, yet her fingers rested lightly on the shovel without moving an inch. The mutated boar rooted around the plot, found no more food scraps, rubbed its hide against the purified soil one last time, then swished its tail and lumbered away. It paused a few steps off to glance back at the shack once more. That lingering gaze sent chills down every viewer's spine. But Muli read clear longing in its murky little eyes, as if it were silently promising, I'll come back again. She pressed her lips into a thin line. Don't come back. There'll be nothing here for you to eat. The heavy thud of its footsteps faded little by little, swallowed by the endless garbage wasteland. Only then did Muli slowly release her grip on the shovel. Her fingers had gone numb from white-knuckle tension. She lifted a corner of the shack's tarp and stepped carefully outside. Her farm plot was churned into a mess, a wide stretch along the edge recontaminated with toxic filth. Muli knelt down and brushed her fingers over the pig-compacted soil, closing her eyes in sorrow. You wasteful brute of a pig. Comments still flooded the livestream nonstop. She survived somehow. She bribed a mutated monster with food. Trading half a potato for her life, total win. But she looks more upset about losing the potato than anything else. Of course she is, that was her only food for tomorrow. Muli truly grieved the loss of her potato. She ached to drag that boar back and make it work the land to pay off its debt. But she could neither catch up to it nor defeat it in combat right now. She could only scrape the contaminated soil to one side, planning to purify it again at dawn. Then she lifted her gaze toward the direction the boar had vanished. Moonlight surged through gaps in the cloud cover, illuminating a distinct stretch of landscape far off. Unlike the mounds of trash surrounding her camp, No towering piles of discarded scrap lay there. Instead lay sprawling low, collapsed building ruins half buried in black ash dust. Crumbling walls, exposed support pillars, and dark straight bands stretching onward like ancient roadways define the view. Muli narrowed her eyes. A ruin complex. Dawn had barely broken when Muli set about cleaning and repurifying the stretch of soil ruined by the boar the night prior. She knelt at the edge of her farm plot, pressing her palm flat to the dirt as soft green light seeped downward from her skin. By the time the contaminated earth darkened back to its rich, clean brown, a thin layer of sweat coated her back. Lost half a potato, plus extra purification work. Muli muttered to herself, mentally tallying her losses. That pig owes me big time. Early morning viewers caught the line and spammed laughing comments. Mutated board debt counter +1. The streamer holds grudges so meticulously. If it comes back, will she really harness it to plow fields? Don't joke, with its size, it'd make a fantastic draft animal. Muli glanced at the chat and actually paused to consider the thought for a split second. The boar possessed immense strength and tough thick hide, if she could tame it. No, don't get ahead of herself. She didn't even have a fence yet. Taming beasts was far too distant a dream. After hiding her seed box, securing the shack's tarp, and double-checking her potato seed tubers were safe, Muli packed her shovel, rope, and tattered backpack and set off toward the ruin complex she'd spotted the night before. A 2-kilometer trek across flat, clear ground would be nothing. But across the Dead Star's garbage wasteland, every step demanded extreme caution. The black ash soil hid shards of broken glass, corroded metal fragments, expired energy cells, and slimy residue left by unknown creatures. Muli moved at a slow, deliberate pace. She used her shovel to probe the ground ahead, circling any patches of discolored, toxic dirt. When she spotted glinting crystal fragments now and then, she would stop to tuck them into a side pocket of her backpack. The livestream audience had long grown used to this habit. There she goes collecting junk again. She really picks up every little thing she finds. All shiny scraps belong to her, total squirrel hoarder energy. Don't mock her, random scrap here could be ancient epic machinery parts. The closer she drew to the ruins, the fewer garbage mounds dotted the landscape, and clear man-made ground structures grew more frequent. Muli spotted cracked ancient roadbeds. These were not the anti-gravity hover tracks common across modern star systems, but ground roadways from the ancient epoch. Layered with thick composite materials, pollution and sandstorms had pockmarked their surface, yet their straight, rigid outline remained unmistakable. Further ahead stood rows of collapsed buildings. Most walls had crumbled into rubble. Rust-red metal support frames jutted out like exposed bone, and several tall support pillars leaned crookedly. Ready to topple at any moment, Muli halted at the ruin complex's edge, closing her eyes to send tendrils of wood's supernatural power deep beneath the ground to scan the area. Life signatures were sparse, but moisture levels were noticeably higher than at her camp. A spark of hope flickered in her chest. As she suspected, an ancient epic research base would undoubtedly feature a full water circulation system. Her goal for today was not to venture deep into dangerous territory to explore, but to scavenge usable supplies first. She circled the outer wall of a half-collapsed building and found a jagged opening to slip inside. Shattered glass hung along the gap's edge. Muli knocked loose the sharpest shards with her shovel before ducking through. Thick dust coated every surface within. The air reeked of aged metal mixed with mildew rot. Her live terminal automatically switched to low-light mode, its camera sweeping the walls to reveal faded old warning signage. The chat instantly perked up. Ancient epic construction. Did people actually live here once? Streamer, be careful, these ruins could collapse. Muli paid no mind to the comments. Her gaze locked onto a flat panel half buried in dust in the corner. The object was coated in thick grime, snapped clean through at one end, its other side still bolted to a metal support frame. She wiped away surface dust with her sleeve. Uncovering deep blue heat-absorbent etched circuitry, she revealed a solar thermal collector panel. Muli's eyes lit up with delight. It was no high-grade energy core, merely a simple heat-absorbing device from the ancient epic, yet to her in her current predicament, it was pure treasure. With this, she could heat water. Granted, she still lacked a steady water supply for now, but stockpiling it was never a mistake. She scanned it with her supernatural sense. The internal structure sustained partial damage, yet the core heat-absorbing layer remained mostly intact. It still works. The second the words left her mouth, every viewer in the live stream understood her plan. Uh-oh, she set her sights on that scrap panel. That beat-up panel's got away at least 20 kilos. Is she really hauling it all the way back to camp? Don't ask. If it's useful, she's taking it. Muli fully intended to move it. She cleared loose broken fragments from the panel's edges, tied it fast with her rope, and dragged it to the building's entrance gap. Her first treasure secured. She ventured deeper into the collapsed building. The interior showed clear signs of violent seismic damage, overturned storage cabinets, snapped piping, and debris covering every inch of the floor. When Muli shifted a pile of rubble with her shovel, a length of silver-gray metal pipe rolled free beneath. She tapped its surface with the shovel blade. It rang clear and crisp, alloy water piping, approximately 1.5 meters long, its walls only partially corroded. Threaded connection joints were still visible at both ends. Muli's eyes shone even brighter. The water pipe was far more practical than the thermal panel. She would need piping for drip irrigation, water diversion, and filtration systems in the future. Even this single length would cut countless future troubles short. Viewers watched her lift the pipe and fell silent, overcome with amusement. This is straight-up treasure hunting in ancient ruins. Thermal panel plus water pipe, her base building progress just skyrocketed. I swear this dead star isn't a wasteland, it's her personal storage warehouse. Muli dragged the pipe over to the entrance gap, her movements noticeably lighter with excitement. Hunger and exhaustion faded against the thrill of discovering valuable supplies. As she prepared to head back outside, her foot kicked against a hard, solid object with a dull thud. Muli bent down, brushing dust aside with her shovel to uncover a small black toolbox. Its casing bore collision dents on the corners, yet its sealing clasp remained fully functional. Her heart skipped a beat. Tools. They were her most desperate shortage. She dragged the box out and wiped off surface grime. The lock clasp jammed tight. She pried it open with 2 hard shoves of her shovel. The instant the lid flipped up, her live stream camera zoomed in for the audience to see. Inside rested a screwdriver, a pair of pliers, a spool of thin metal wire, several bolts, and a short multi-purpose utility blade. The tools were few in number, yet miraculously well preserved. Muli stared at them for 3 full seconds, a slow smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. She nearly spun in a circle out of joy. If seeds represented her future harvest, and water pipes the lifeblood of her farm, then these tools were the hands that would let her reshape this dead star into fertile farmland. With screwdrivers and pliers, she could dismantle scrap hardware, repair the thermal panel, build fencing, craft support frames, and assemble drip irrigation systems. Viewers began sending live gifts nonstop. Gift received: 100 star coins. Message: congrats on scoring a full toolbox. Gift received: 200 star coins. Message: don't know why, but watching you scavenge junk fills me with joy. Gift received: 66 star coins. Message: slow and steady wins the race. Keep going. Muli glanced at the gift notification pop-ups and spoke earnestly. Thank you all. Every coin will go toward improving the farmland. The chat erupted in more laughter. She's so unpretentious, zero performative charm. Other streamers buy fancy outfits with gifts, she buys fencing materials. Fencing is smart. To keep that pig out. Muli wholeheartedly agreed with the words, keep that pig out. She slung the toolbox over her back and hauled the lightest water pipe back to camp first. 1 trip. A second trip. On her 3rd trip transporting the heavy thermal panel, halfway back the rope bit painfully into her shoulders. And her legs trembled with fatigue. The panel weighed far more than she'd estimated, its jagged edges catching constantly on scattered scrap metal. She was forced to pause repeatedly to catch her breath before dragging onward. Gift alerts never stopped popping up as the audience watched her trudge back and forth like a hardworking ant. Some sent 10-star coins, others 100. Many left dedicated messages marking Water Pipe Fund or Anti-Bore Fencing Fund. Muli silently logged every donation mentally. Water Filter Fund. Farm Fencing Fund. Tool Maintenance Fund. Once she earned enough currency, her very first project would be fencing off her entire cleared farm plot. Any boar coming to root up her soil would have to crash through solid barriers first. Half a day later, all 3 treasures were safely transported back to her camp. Muli collapsed onto the ground in front of her shack, too drained to lift even a single finger. The solar thermal panel leaned against her metal shack sheets, and the alloy water pipe laid beside the farm plot. She clutched the toolbox tight against her chest as if holding a crate of gold. After resting for a long while, She opened the toolbox and tested the pliers. The jaw moved stiffly from disuse, but they still functioned perfectly. She wiped it clean with satisfaction and put it back in place. Not a bad day. The live stream bullet comments popped up instantly. Not bad? This is a massive profit. Third day stranded on a wasteland star. Streamers got farmland, a shack, seeds, heat collection panels, water pipes, and a toolbox. Who gets this intense sense of progression? Muli stood up to tidy her supplies. She secured the heat panels to the outer wall of the shack temporarily, set the water pipes beside the purified soil plot, and stowed the toolbox deep inside the shelter. Once finished, she glanced toward the rubble wasteland. On her last trip hauling the toolbox, she'd spotted a sloped entrance buried under broken stone deeper in the debris. She'd been far too exhausted back then to venture near. Now that she thought about it, her wood element superpower had picked up a strange faint aura lingering around that spot. Dampness. It smelled like water. Muli stood at the edge of her purified soil plot, staring deep into the stretch of collapsed buildings. There was an underground entrance down there, and beneath it, a water source might be hidden. Muli didn't rush straight back to the rubble right away. She slept for 3 full hours first. Reckless people never last long on a dead star. She knew she was drained to the point of lightheadedness. If something went wrong underground, her seed crate and this 5-square-meter farmland would all be lost. When she woke, dawn hadn't fully broken yet. She finished the last charred scraps of roasted potato, chugged the remainder of her nutritional paste, slung the toolbox over her shoulder, grabbed her shovel and water pipe, and headed back toward the ruins. Her live stream view count had surged again early that morning. Clips of her trash-picking infrastructure build on a dead star from the night before had gone viral across the interstellar network, drawing crowds tuning in to watch her explore new territory today. Here we go. Will she check out the underground entrance today? I brought breakfast nutrient paste with me, even though the smell's brutal. Don't push yourself too hard, streamer. Underground facilities are super dangerous. Muli skimmed the comments, but said nothing. Danger was guaranteed, but water mattered more. Without a steady water supply, she couldn't grow cabbages, wheat, let alone rice. Her box of seeds would sit dormant, losing vitality day by day. She couldn't afford to wait. After covering the 2-kilometer walk, the sloped buried entrance came into view again deep in the rubble. Most of it was crushed under rock and fractured walls, only a rusted strip of metal peeking out. Muli knelt down, pressed her palm to the ground, and sent her with power seeping downward. That damp aura was still there. Faint, but undeniable. Her gaze steadied. Start digging. No one in the stream joked about her talking to the dirt this time. Everyone knew whenever she said those words, she almost always unearthed something valuable. Muli used her shovel to clear loose surface gravel first, then plucked tangled metal wires free with pliers. For massive cement building slabs she couldn't lift, she fashioned a lever with her alloy water pipe to pry them apart. The pipe creaked, strained to its limit. Muli quickly shifted her angle, unwilling to crack it. It was a core piece of her future drip irrigation system, so she couldn't afford to break it here. 2 hours later, her wrists felt heavy as lead. At last, the rubble covering the entrance was cleared away. A set of metal steps leading downward was exposed. The staircase was narrow, coated in thick rust. Looking down, the passage plunged into pitch black, gaping like a beast's open maw. Bullet comments filled with tension flooded the screen. There's actually an underground facility. Don't go down yet, wait till it's brighter out. Toxic gas might be trapped down there. What other choice does she have? Her seeds will die without water. Muli held off on descending for now. She rummaged through her toolbox for thin metal wire and ragged cloth, twisting them into a simple probing rod. She cranked her wrist terminal's light to maximum brightness and strapped it to her chest. Next, she tossed a small stone down the stairs. It clattered down several steps, echoes bouncing through the underground tunnel. But no creatures stirred in response. She swept her power through the space once more. No obvious living creatures detected. Contamination levels were high, but not the lethal corrosive vapor she feared. It was safe enough to head down. Gripping her shovel tightly, Muli stepped onto the rusted metal stairs one slow foot at a time. The metal screeched with every shift of her weight. She tested each step carefully before putting her full weight down. Faint markings from the ancient era lined the tunnel walls, most faded beyond recognition. Only fragmented words like water storage, circulation, and purification could be made out. The air grew damper the deeper she went. The dampness carried iron rust and mildew stench, foul to anyone else, but to Muli, it smelled like a granary. Water. There really was water here. When she reached the bottom level, her terminal light swept across a vast open chamber. This place was an ancient-era underground water storage facility. Rusted pipes lined the walls, most snapped and broken, and a layer of dried sediment coated the floor. Several giant water tanks lay collapsed and shattered, nothing but empty husks remaining. Muli followed the wall inward, letting her wood power trace the trail of moisture. In the far corner of the lowest level stood a fully sealed water tank. It towered taller than Muli, its exterior mottled with rust, yet the main tank remained intact. An old observation window cut into its side glowed murky dark green from within. Muli stepped closer and pressed her fingertips against the metal shell. Water. Hundreds of liters of it, roughly 2 tons total. It was heavily polluted, laced with toxins, heavy metals, and radiation residue. Its sickly green hue resembled spoiled chemical serum. But it was water all the same. Muli held her breath for a long moment before exhaling slowly. The live stream audience caught sight of that murky green liquid too. Is that water? That color's terrifying. There's no way it's drinkable. Dead Star contaminated water. One sip, and she'd end up in a medical pod instantly. But remember, she can purify it with her power. As soon as that comment appeared, Muli had already located the tank's maintenance access panel. Its screws were seized solid with rust, but luckily she'd found the toolbox yesterday. She wedged a screwdriver into the gaps and twisted little by little. The first screw stripped its threads, so she resorted to wrenching it free with pliers, veins bulging on her hand as she pried it loose. One screw, then a second, a third. When the hatch popped open, a thick fishy rot stench billowed outward. Muli turned her head to steady herself for a few seconds before submerging both hands into the liquid. Ice-cold contaminated water swallowed her wrists, clinging like thorny mud. She closed her eyes and channeled every ounce of her wood element ability. Vivid green light bloomed from her palms, spreading across the water's surface. The murky green sewage churned, tiny black pollutant particles drawn out and clumping into heavy sediment. Toxins separated from the liquid. Heavy metals precipitated out. Radiation residue drifted to the surface like gray mist, which she compressed into dense clumps of filth. Purifying water drained far more energy than cleansing soil. Liquid flowed freely, spreading contaminants thin. This forced her to sift and filter bit by bit. Before long, sweat beaded on her forehead, and her wrists began to shake uncontrollably. The stream's comments sounded muffled, as if filtered through water. She doesn't look well. Don't push yourself, just clean a small batch first. Even 100 liters must take so much power. She doesn't own a water purifier. This is her only option. Muli only planned to purify a portion anyway. 2 full tons was far too much for her to process all at once. She confined her purification power to one corner of the tank, rigging a makeshift divider and drainage system with metal sheets and thin wire from her toolbox. Sealing off the cleansed water near the maintenance hatch, time ticked by slowly. 3 hours later, she'd successfully purified around 100 liters of clear, fresh water. A patch of transparent liquid sat beside the murky green sewage. It couldn't compare to natural mountain spring water, yet the harsh toxic fumes were gone. Its contamination levels were low enough for irrigation and safe drinking after secondary treatment. Muli sank to the ground, leaning against the tank, her chest heaving from exhaustion. Her fingers were pale and wrinkled from prolonged submersion, the raw cuts stinging sharply against the water. She felt completely drained. But her eyes lit up as she stared at that pool of clear water. 100 liters. The most precious resource she possessed on this dead star. The live stream fell silent for a long stretch, then gift notification alerts began popping up nonstop. Gift received. 500 star coins. Message, for your water purifier fund. Gift received. 1,000 star coins. Message, my palms ache just watching you. Streamer, buy proper equipment soon. Muli pushed herself upright using the tank wall, her voice rough and hoarse. I will. But she wouldn't wait for deliveries right now. First, she needed to haul this water back up to her camp. She attached her alloy water pipe to the tank's low drain valve, adding segments of old piping salvaged from the rubble. She joined the pieces together, wrapped leaking joints tight with rags and wire, then sealed the gaps temporarily using her purification power. The contraption looked absurdly janky. Sections bent at odd angles, drops dripping constantly from every connector, but water truly flowed steadily through the tubing. Mooley made dozens of back-and-forth trips, running the pipeline from the underground entrance up to ground level, extending it as far downhill toward her shack as the slope allowed. For the remaining stretch too far for piping, she hauled water incrementally in small metal buckets she'd scavenged. By the time the first batch of fresh water reached her camp, the sun hung low in the sky. Her legs trembled with fatigue, yet she didn't pause to rest. She connected the pipe beside her purified soil plot, poking tiny holes through the tubing with metal wire from her toolbox. To craft a crude drip irrigation line, she propped the water bucket up on a rock to raise its height, then twisted open the valve. Clear water trickled slowly through the pipe, seeping out of each pinprick hole to fall drop by drop onto the dark brown purified earth. Every viewer in the stream fixated on that single droplet. It hung suspended from the tube, swayed once, and fell. Plop. Fresh water hit the soil. Mooley's fingertips still rested on the ground, and in the next instant, a faint response rumbled up from the earth beneath her feet. So subtle, yet it felt like something that had slumbered for endless ages had woken deep beneath the rubble. She pressed her palm harder against the dirt. That faint vibration rising from deep in the soil was thin as a newly sprouted grass root. Once the clear water seeped down, her pre-purified earth didn't simply soak up the liquid like regular dirt. Layers deep underground slowly loosened. The hardened toxic crust softened. She'd stripped most pollutant particles long ago, and the mineral-rich soil layers touched by fresh water began releasing nutrients. The process moved painfully slow, but it was working. Mooley sank her fingers into the damp soil, ignoring the throbbing ache in her wrists. She closed her eyes, guiding her with power down the trail of dripping water, her breathing growing calmer the deeper she sensed. It wasn't her imagination. This 5-square-meter purified plot of land was alive now. The audience picked up on her odd demeanor. Why's she gone quiet all of a sudden? Did the soil darken a little when that drop hit it? I thought it was just the lighting, but she's been pressing her hand to the ground nonstop. Anyone who knows soil science weigh in? Is that a natural soil reaction? Mooley glanced up at her terminal screen. Smudges of mud streaked across her chin that she didn't bother wiping away. It's not a soil reaction. She twisted the pipe valve to slow the water flow further, her voice still raspy. The land's fertility is restoring itself. Her words sent the bullet comments grinding to a halt for a beat. Interstellar humans barely understood the term land fertility. They mastered nutrient solution formulas, hydroponic growth pods, synthetic protein production, but almost none grasped what it meant for a patch of earth to sustain life on its own. Mooley understood perfectly. If the soil could regenerate naturally, it wasn't dead land. Even at a glacial pace, consistent purification, watering and planting would create a cycle. Soil nourished roots, roots stabilized soil, fallen leaves decomposed into fertilizer, which fed the next crop. A self-sustaining loop. The very start of a farm. Mooley stood, grabbed her shovel and redrew sharp straight boundary lines along the edge of the 5-square-meter plot, marking divisions as if laying out walls for a new house. Starting today, this is my first experimental farm plot. She spoke the words with complete solemnity. Some viewers laughed in the stream. She announced that so formally. 5 square meters counts as farmland? Quit nitpicking. She grew potatoes on a dead star. 5 square meters is a luxury mansion by wasteland standards. I took a screenshot. The first farm plot of the dead star is born. Mooley paid no mind to the chatter. She fetched her seed crate from the back of the shack, propping a metal sheet up to shield the crate from view, then angled her terminal camera to capture only her hands, hiding the crate's contents out of frame. Protecting her seeds was instinct. Even if no viewer across the interstellar network could steal them, she refused to broadcast the exact quantity and condition of every seed packet. She pulled 2 packets out. Cabbage. Chili pepper. Cabbage boasted stable vitality and a short growth cycle. She could harvest its leafy greens quickly for sustenance. Chili peppers held even higher vitality. Though they took longer to mature, their value stretched far beyond mere seasoning. Potatoes without chili were just survival rations. Potatoes with chili were an actual life worth living. Mooley brushed the sealed packets gently with her fingertips, as if petting 2 litters of newly rescued baby animals. "Grow strong for me," she whispered softly. "I've got nothing right now, no fertilizer, no greenhouse. Not even pests to pick off you. Make do for now and just stay alive." The bullet comments lit up with amusement. She's genuinely talking to seed packets. Seeds heard that. Boss is broke. Go cabbage. Go chili. Streamers waiting to cook you later. Mooley dug 6 shallow pits along the eastern end of her experimental plot. Cabbage seeds were far too precious to sow densely. She left ample space between each hole, planning to breed seeds from the healthiest sprouts later. The western half was reserved for chili peppers. She placed only 4 seeds. Young chili seedlings were fragile, and the dead star's brutal winds meant they needed extra buffer space to grow. Before placing each seed underground, Mooley swept a faint wisp of her wood power over it to erase trace surface contamination, then dampened her fingertips to coat the seed husk. Every tiny movement was meticulous. The live stream fell into unplanned silence as they watched her kneel to bury the seeds. 5 square meters was minuscule. Yet amid endless gray-black rubble, those 10 small filled pits resembled 10 unlit tiny lamps. Once the soil was covered, Mooley rested her palm over the cabbage beds on the east side. Her wood power seeped through her fingers into the dirt. Her ability hadn't fully replenished yet, so she didn't force rapid growth like with the potatoes, only guided gentle vitality flow. Thin strands of green light wrapped each seed, rousing them like waking drowsy creatures. The first cabbage seed reacted instantly. Its husk split open from the water, tender white taproots burrowing greedily into the clean soil. Mooley could clearly sense that spark of life hungrily drinking nutrients from the purified earth. A faint smile tugged at her lips. Nice, sprout number 1's got an appetite. Less than 10 minutes later, a small bulge pushed up from the soil surface. On the stream screen, the dull brown dirt split open, a flash of tender green poking through. Its delicate leaves looked fragile enough to snap in the wind, yet blazed with vivid, striking green. The comment section erupted. It sprouted. It actually sprouted. I see green, real living green. What's cabbage? Is this what cabbage looks like? It's tiny but so beautiful. Mooley didn't stop there. A second, third, fourth cabbage seedlings sprouted one after another. The fifth lagged slightly, its curled leaf tip barely peeking through. She sent a thin burst of power to nurture it, like giving medicine to a sickly sprout. The sixth hadn't broken the surface fully, only raising a tiny mound of soil. Mooley didn't rush it. Number 6's a slow starter, we'll keep an eye on you. She crossed to the western bed to nurture the chili seeds. Chili seeds responded far slower than cabbage, like stubborn cubs refusing to get out of bed. She channeled her power twice before one cautiously unfurled a white root. Mooley stared at the dirt, waiting patiently. When the first sprout tip broke through, it was half as thin as the cabbage seedlings, its pale green shoot trembling against the soil edge. She immediately propped scrap metal sheets around it to block the wind. Chili sprout number 1, skittish little thing, but you'll pull through. The stream burst into laughter. Skittish little thing, haha. Is she being serious right now? Who assigns personality traits to cabbages and chili peppers? This is too adorable, I can't handle it. Mooley was entirely sincere. She rummaged the toolbox for thin metal wire and scavenged a dozen thin metal shards the length of her fingers from the trash heap. She scrubbed clean usable pieces, sanded down razor-sharp edges with stones, then carved identification labels into each scrap with her multi-tool knife. Cabbage number 1, cabbage number 2, cabbage no. 3-inch her lettering was neat and orderly. After carving each marker, she stuck it beside its matching seedling, double-checking the angle to ensure it didn't block sunlight, dig into roots, or scrape tender leaves. For the chili seedlings, she carved even more carefully. She pressed chili number 1's metal marker extra firmly into the dirt, as if afraid the fragile sprout might wander off in the night. The audience shifted from laughing to quiet awe, then showered her with gifts again. Gift received, 10 star coins. Message, by a household register for cabbage number 1. Gift received, 20 star coins. Message, don't be scared, chili number 1, mom's here. Gift received, 66 star coins. Message, Dead Star agronomist has arrived. Someone typed a rallying cry in the comments. Go cabbage number 1. Dozens of identical lines flooded the screen right after. Go cabbage number 1. Don't be shy, chili number 1. Wake up slowpoke cabbage number 6, your teammates are hard at work. Mooley's lips curved into an unguarded grin as she scanned the childish messages scrolling past. She planted the final metal marker, stepped back, and surveyed her tiny experimental farm plot earnestly. 6 cabbage seedlings lined the east end, and 2 chili sprouts had broken ground on the west, with the remaining 2 chili seeds still dormant underground. Fresh water slowly seeped from the drip holes, darkening the moist soil brown. Against the gray wasteland of trash and rubble, this patch of green was impossibly small. But they were alive. Mooley bent to straighten cabbage number one's marker, tilted askew by the wind. First day recorded for the first experimental farm plot. She pulled up the memo app on her terminal and jotted down notes. Cabbage number 1, fast germination, healthy leaf color, high vitality. Cabbage number 6, delayed germination, requires observation. Chili number 1, fragile young sprout, wind shielding mandatory. The stream lost it completely. Is she obsessed with farming logs or something? But seeing her take such careful notes is weirdly comforting. I never cared about rich people's live streams, but I just sent 10 star coins for a cabbage. If they harvest cabbage number 1 later, I'm gonna cry. Mooley's fingers paused when she spotted that last comment. Don't cry, she said calmly. I'll let it grow fully first, only pluck its outer leaves to eat. The core stays to keep growing. The stream erupted in louder laughter. Cabbage number 1, thanks a lot, I guess. Mooley saved her memo and went to check the water barrels next. She had little clean water hauled up from underground, so the drip irrigation had to be used sparingly. She turned down the water flow of every nozzle to the minimum, shutting the valves the second the soil surface looked damp enough. Only after finishing all that did she head back to her shanty to rummage through her backpack. She pulled out the bottles of nutrient solution one by one. The first bottle was long empty. The second held barely a thin residue, nearly drained when she'd saved the potato plants before. The third remained unopened. Mooley gripped the bottle of off-white nutrient fluid, glancing at her test field, then at her stomach, hollow and throbbing with hunger. No matter how resilient the cabbage seedlings were, they still needed time to mature. Her psionic power could accelerate growth, yet it could not create something from nothing. With her current water supply and soil fertility, cabbage 1 would take at least 2 more days to mature enough for steady leaf harvesting. 2 whole days. And this was her last bottle of nutrient solution. Mooley set the final nutrient bottle on her knees and scored measurement marks along its surface with a blade. 6 shallow lines in total, carved lightly into the pale gray bottle, as if she'd split her own life into 6 tiny portions. The live stream chat had just been cheering the cabbages on, but now it fell largely silent. Is she going to ration it sip by sip? A single D-grade nutrient solution isn't enough for a normal person to last 1 full day. 6 portions, is she planning to stretch this over 2 days? Mooley twisted off the cap, and the familiar industrial sickly sweet stench washed over her, making her furrow her brows. It tasted terrible, but it could keep her alive. She took a tiny sip up to the first mark. The liquid barely touched her tongue before her stomach cramped in protest. She swallowed it through her nausea, then gulped a little clean water to wash away the sticky, cloying aftertaste. 1 portion at dawn, 1 at noon, 1 at dusk. She screwed the cap tight and tucked the bottle deep inside the shanty. 2 days. The chat barges flooded the screen frantically. Don't ration it like that, you'll get hypoglycemia. She exhausted so much psionic power purifying water yesterday, her body can't hold out. I want to send her supplies. Where's the delivery portal for the wasteland planet? Let's crowdfund. 80 million viewers, 1 stellar credit each would be more than enough. A viewer quickly posted a screenshot of interstellar logistics inquiries. The nearest interstellar logistics station to LX 7749 operated a dangerous wasteland delivery route. Base shipping fees started at 150,000 stellar credits per single shipment. Radiation isolation crates, precision delivery, landing protection, all charged extra separately. Buying a crate of nutrient solutions was cheap on its own. Getting them delivered to her would cost 50 times the price of the goods and more. The chat went quiet, deflated like a punctured balloon. 50 times the cost? That's outright robbery. They never intended for exiled prisoners on wasteland planets to survive. How much leftover streamer revenue does she have? Is it enough? Even if it is, shipments aren't guaranteed to arrive on time. Mooley skimmed the comments, then closed her toolbox without a word. Don't count on distant supply deliveries. She hefted her shovel and walked toward the other side of the rubble. First, I'll find something edible to chew. Her stamina was visibly draining fast. Ordinarily, she could scout paths and gather scraps as she walked. Today, after only a few hundred meters, her calves turned weak and her grip on the shovel felt far less steady than yesterday. The strain had been even clearer when purifying the test field soil. She'd fed a wisp of psionic power to cabbage 1, yet its leaves only unfurled halfway, instead of shooting upward instantly as they had the day before. Chili 1 was far more delicate. It bent at the slightest breeze, and she'd propped it upright twice to keep it from toppling. Mooley knelt beside the field, breathing shallowly to conserve energy. Hunger would wear her body down. A weakened body would cripple her psionic efficiency. Dulled psionic power meant she could not expand her farm or speed crop growth. A vicious cycle. She could not afford to wait 2 days doing nothing. The live stream watched her walk from the test field to the edge of the garbage wasteland, and viewers typed frantically in panic, making typos left and right. She's going out again? Don't wander far, those wild hogs roamed around last night. Even if she hunts for food, there's nothing but trash on this planet. Mooley halted in the shadow of a collapsed ruin. The spot was sheltered from the wind. Beneath several fractured alloy slabs, a dull gray layer clung to the ground, resembling filthy velvet, thin and ragged with sickly blue-gray frayed edges. It grew in contaminated soil, yet had not withered away. Mooley knelt down, pulled on her gloves, and scraped a small pile of the growth loose with her blade. She channeled her wood element psionic power into it, and a line of data surfaced in her mind. Radiation moss, toxic, contains trace digestible starch within fibers. Toxic. But it held starch. Mooley stared at those words, swallowing hard. A viewer zoomed the live feed camera in. What's this gray fuzzy stuff? Don't touch it, it looks poisonous on sight. I looked up wasteland planet records. Most moss-like growths carry radiation toxins. What's she staring at? She wouldn't actually eat that, would she? Mooley already held the pinch of moss in her palm. First, she rinsed it with clean water, the runoff turning murky black. Next, she slowly stripped away the toxins with her psionic power, compressing the stinging radioactive residue into sesame-sized specks and tossing them into a distant rock crevice. The moss lightened in color, shifting from blue-gray to a dry, ashen gray, its texture rough as coarse fiber. She purified it a second time. Only once the toxicity dropped to a level her body could withstand did she pinch a tiny fragment and pop it into her mouth. The second she chewed down, Mooley's brows knotted tight. Bitter. Astringent. It carried the foul tang of rotting wood soaked in stagnant dirty water. The fibers spread across her tongue like sawdust, growing drier with every chew, lacking any hint of natural food's fragrance. She had to wash it down with water, or the coarse fibers would scrape her throat raw. The live stream chat erupted in distress. Don't eat that. Just watching makes my stomach ache. Yesterday she was eating roasted potatoes, now she's chewing moss. I complained about how awful nutrient solution tasted earlier, now I want to seal my mouth shut forever. Can anyone think of a way to help her? Mooley bowed her head and purified another handful of moss. She shed no tears, made no show of her suffering. She simply tore the moss into thinner strips, stuffed them slowly into her mouth, and chewed blank-faced. Every few bites, she paused to catch her breath, letting her stomach adjust to the terrible substance before continuing. Streamer donation alerts popped up nonstop across the screen. Donation received. 100 stellar credits. Message. Water Purifier Fund. Donation received. 500 stellar credits. Message. Buy her something to eat. Donation received. 50 stellar credits. Message. Make Cabbage 1 grow fast. When Mooley spotted the words Cabbage 1, her chewing slowed. She wanted nothing more than to see it mature quickly too. But crops were not machinery, especially not on a wasteland planet. Overforcing growth would damage their root systems, ruining future seed harvests. She stuffed the remaining purified moss into a scrap of clean cloth, tied it shut, and slipped it into the side pocket of her backpack. It would tide her over at least. Terrible flavor was a minor problem. Starving to death was the real crisis. She pushed herself upright with the shovel, ready to head back, when her feet froze mid-step. Her wood element psionic power was tugged sharply from far away. A heavy, urgent pull. The life signature originated from the test field, not a regular sprout pushing through soil, nor a plant crying out from drought. It felt like a small beast writhing in its den, bursting with uncontrollable vitality. Mooley still held half a mouthful of moss, its bitter tang stinging the base of her tongue. Yet, she lifted her gaze toward her camp. Cabbage 1 was exploding with growth. Mooley stuffed the leftover moss deep into her pocket, grabbed her shovel, and sprinted straight for the camp. Scrap metal snagged her trouser cuffs, gravel skittering under her feet. She nearly stumbled, steadying herself only by leaning her weight on the shovel. The live terminal strapped to her chest jolted wildly, the camera footage blurring, and the chat barges spiraled into chaos. Slow down. Did something happen in the test field? What's wrong with Cabbage 1? Mooley offered no reply. She could feel that surging life force swelling larger by the second. This was no withering. It was rampant, unnatural growth. When she rounded the last pile of broken mech husks and laid eyes on the eastern end of the test field, her footsteps ground to a halt at the soil's edge. Cabbage 1 had transformed entirely. The seedling that had only been palm-sized the previous day now stood like a vivid emerald lighthouse, rooted firmly in dark brown soil. Layer upon layer of leaves unfurled outward. The outermost fronds were wider than Mooley's forearms, their veins pale and translucent, the leaf surfaces glistening with fresh moisture. It was 3 times the size of a regular cabbage. Against the gray wasteland planet, its green was wildly, unreasonably vibrant. Cabbages 2 and 3 had grown noticeably as well, yet beside Cabbage 1, they looked like underlings standing guard beside their captain. Once the camera feed steadied, the live stream chat exploded. Did it grow this much overnight? Not overnight, it wasn't this big a minute ago. Cabbage 1 just cheated at growth. I'm officially naming it the Cabbage King. Mooley stepped closer and knelt down. The soil around its roots remained damp, every drop of purified water fully absorbed. When she leaned near the leaves, a faint, refreshing sweet scent drifted into her nose. She brushed a finger lightly across its surface with her psionic power. A line of text materialized in her mind. Pure soil cabbage grade, fine bonus effect. Consuming its leaves restores minor amounts of spiritual power. Mooley's breath caught in her throat. Spiritual power restoration. To her current state, those 2 words mattered more than 100 bottles of nutrient solution. She'd drained her psionic core dry, purifying water the night before and forcing seedling growth that morning. Even a tiny boost to her spiritual power would let her purify more soil, nurture more crops, and cling to survival a little longer. The audience could not see the identification data, only watching her stare motionless at the cabbage. What's wrong? Is it edible? Don't tell me she's going to bite it raw right now. Mooley reached out and plucked one of the outermost leaves. She skipped washing it. This leaf had grown in purified soil, watered with drip irrigation, and just been swept clean by her psionic power, far cleaner than synthetic meals served on interstellar dining tables. Clear, glistening sap oozed from the broken leaf stalk. Mooley lowered her head and took a huge bite. A crisp crunch echoed through the live feed's audio. The cabbage leaf split between her teeth, fresh sweet juice flooding her mouth. No sickly chemical tang of nutrient solution, no bitter grit of radiation moss, none of the heavy starch of roasted potatoes. It tasted bright, clean, bursting with water, carrying the gentle, natural sweetness of fresh vegetation. After swallowing, her throat felt soothed from the dry ache of hunger. As Mooley chewed, the pure sweetness made her eyes burn hot. She had not intended to cry. One mouthful of bitter moss, then fresh tender cabbage. Her stomach ached hollow, yet her tongue tasted the flavor of being alive. A single tear fell, splashing onto the back of her hand. Mooley did not stop eating. She took another big bite, her cheeks stuffed full, tears streaming down her cheeks and carving pale streaks through the dust caked on her skin. The live stream fell silent for several seconds. Then the holographic scent-sharing feature activated again. The cabbage's aroma was faint yet overwhelmingly fresh, the sweet tang of juice, the clean green scent of newly torn foliage, and a faint crisp earthiness from the purified soil all flooding every viewer's senses at once. People who survived solely on synthetic nutrient solutions had never experienced such a vivid natural flavor. I was feeling sorry for her a second ago, now I'm crying from craving it. Why does this stupid cabbage smell better than premium steak? I thought cabbage was just plain grass. Can someone explain why it smells this incredible? She's crying, I'm crying too, but mine's mostly from hunger. Cabbage 1 has made it big. Mooley finished the entire outer leaf down to the stalk, not wasting a single drop of its sap, chewing the tough stem slowly before swallowing. The sweet freshness settled in her empty stomach, wrapping her aching frame like warm water. More striking was the effect on her spiritual power. Her parched psionic core softened at the gentle nourishment. The boost was small, yet enough to clear the fog from her mind. She lifted a hand to wipe the tears from her cheeks, her fingertips still sticky with cabbage sap. It's delicious. Her voice was soft, yet more persuasive than any commercial advertisement. Donation alerts rolled out nonstop across the screen. Donation received. 1,000 stellar credits. Message. Just one leaf, even if I only get to smell it. Donation received. 200 stellar credits. Message. Go get cabbage 1. Donation received. 666 stellar credits. Message. When she cried eating it, my heart broke. Donation received. 3,000 stellar credits. Message, streamer, can you open pre-orders? At the word pre-orders, Muli shook her head earnestly. I'm not selling any. She stroked Cabbage One's leaves gently, as if patting a guard dog that had just performed a great service. It needs to keep growing new leaves and produce seed stock. A wave of disappointed complaints flooded the chat. She won't sell any again. She's penniless right now and still refuses to sell. She's so level-headed. Seeds are worth more than donations. Cabbage heads are worth more than donations. Got it. Muli was truly clear-headed about her priorities. The value of this cabbage lay not in a single leaf, but in its successful adaptation to purified soil and the wasteland planet's harsh environment, plus its beneficial mutation. If she tended it well and saved its seeds, her entire farm could upgrade to this superior strain later. She plucked a second outer leaf and split it into 3 portions, one to eat now, one to save for dinner, and one to chop up, test-feeding it to soil microbes and any mutant beasts she might trap later to observe their reactions. Watching her ration out the leaves methodically, the chat recovered from their hunger-fueled frenzy and lightened up. She's budgeting her food again. Cabbage One, I just grew bigger, not put myself up for sale. The streamer's eyes scream, anyone who steals my cabbage dies. Muli reinforced the protective barrier around Cabbage One for good measure. She hauled several thin metal sheets to prop up the windward side, then shifted its identification marker outward to stop mature leaves from scraping against the sharp metal edges. She checked cabbages 2 through 6 one by one, and slipped a wisp of psionic power to Chili One as well. Once all tasks were done, she knelt beside Cabbage One's roots to loosen the surrounding soil. The moment her fingertips touched the dirt, her movements froze. Thin silvery veins snaked through the dark brown soil near its roots, nearly invisible, thin as strands of hair, rising from deeper underground and coiling around Cabbage One's thickest main root. When clean water seeped through the earth, the veins glowed with a faint cold luminescence. All traces of ease faded from Muli's face. She scraped away the top layer of dirt with her fingernail. More silver veins spread out beneath, fine and quiet, like the tip of an underground mineral vein. Muli first held a cabbage leaf up in front of the live camera lens. The live stream was still buzzing over Cabbage One, the emerald foliage filling most of the frame, viewers begging her to move the leaf so they could smell the scent longer. Taking advantage of the distraction, she shifted the live terminal half a meter sideways. The camera still captured the test field and her back, yet could not clearly see the soil beneath her hands. Muli lifted her shovel and traced a small circle around Cabbage One's base, mimicking her usual soil loosening work. Digging a root drainage trench. She tossed off a casual explanation. The chat suspected nothing. Dig away, don't drown Cabbage King. Only the Cabbage King gets luxury treatment. Who else made a Cabbage One avatar as their profile pic? Muli bowed her head, her movements far gentler than they'd ever been. She dared not hack roughly at the silver veins. If they truly marked the tip of a mineral vein, damaging the cabbage's roots would be an irreparable loss. She scraped off the topsoil with her blade first, then pried deeper bit by bit with the shovel's tip. 10 centimeters deep. 20 centimeters deep. The silver veins did not break, only growing more distinct the further down she dug. At roughly half a meter, the shovel tip tapped a hard object with a faint crisp clink. Muli stopped digging. She brushed the dirt away with her bare hands instead. Soil seeped between her fingers, the old scars on her palms stinging against the grit, yet she did not so much as flinch. Only when a fist-sized silvery crystal emerged did she slowly hollow out all the surrounding dirt. The crystal was irregular in shape, its surface dusted with tiny shimmering flecks like scattered starlight. Amid the dull, grim wasteland soil, it looked far too pure to belong on this planet. Muli wrapped it in a tattered cloth and lifted it free from the earth. The second it touched her palm, cool, gentle energy seeped straight into her body. It carried no toxic radiation, nor the rigid, lifeless aura of ordinary ore, instead offering a fine, pure flow of spiritual energy. She channeled her psionic power to examine it. Text materialized in her mind. Trace spirit energy, or replenishes spiritual power for psionic practitioners. Interstellar market price, approximate 5,000 stellar credits per gram. Muli's throat tightened sharply. This single chunk weighed at least 200 grams. 1 million stellar credits. She stared at the crystal in her palm, then glanced at her frayed cuffs, her beat-up shovel with curled edges, her drafty shanty, and Cabbage One shielded by metal sheets beside her. 1 million credits. Enough to buy countless nutrient solutions, water purifiers, protective tarps, a full set of proper tools, and even put a down payment on a small survival pod. The live stream chat continued scrolling unawares. Why is she kneeling there all of a sudden? Did she find extra thick cabbage roots? Her back looks so focused, like she's giving cabbage one a full checkup. Mooley slipped the crystal into her sleeve with steady, fluid movements. Sell it? No. Credits mattered, but replenishing her spiritual power mattered far more right now. With this spirit ore, she could restore her psionic power faster, expand her farm, purify water, and accelerate crop growth. Once her fields expanded and she harvested more vegetables and saved seeds, stellar credits would come naturally. Selling the ore to stock up on supplies would feel satisfying in the short term. But supplies would run out eventually. Fertile land and her own psionic power were assets that would compound and grow endlessly. Mooley patted the bottom of the hole thoroughly to confirm she'd only uncovered a small fragment at the tip of a mineral vein, not a massive main deposit, then began refilling the dirt. She packed the soil with meticulous care. Clean topsoil went at the bottom, loose broken earth layered on top, completely covering all silver veins. The dirt around Cabbage One's roots was pressed to the perfect softness, and she dug a shallow drainage ring around the outer edge as a final touch. To the camera, she looked every inch a farming fanatic doting obsessively on her prized cabbage. The chat remained oblivious. Cabbage One's living in a luxury plot now. Streamer, loosen the soil for me too. I'd happily take root here. Up front, are you volunteering to turn into cabbage or get eaten as cabbage? Mooley picked up the leftover cabbage leaf plucked beside Cabbage One, using it to block the camera's view as she slipped the spirit ore from her sleeve into an inner pocket pressed against her body. The ore rested against her skin, thin streams of energy seeping outward nonstop. She did not greedily drain all its power, only drawing a single faint wisp. Her parched spiritual power was like dry soil receiving a drop of clean water. The tight throbbing in her temples slowly eased. The stabbing pain from days of overtaxing her psionic power faded as well. Mooley's gaze steadied, sharp and calm. This was truly a priceless find. These were incredibly valuable treasures. Yet the more precious something was, the more it had to be hidden away. She returned to her shanty hut and set her portable terminal by the entrance, angling the lens straight at her experimental farm plot. Viewers were too busy watching Cabbage Number 1 unfurl its leaves to notice her slipping deep into the hut's back corner. Mooley tugged aside a tattered waterproof tarp at the very rear. Beneath it sat her seed storage box, and under that lay piles of what she dubbed potentially useful trash scavenged earlier: crushed crystalline grains, rusted bolts, fractured pipe clamps, tiny glowing stones, all sorted neatly into broken crates. She wrapped her spirit energy ore in 3 layers of rags, smudged a thin coating of ash over the bundle, then tucked it deep inside an unremarkable scrap metal casing. Finally, she covered the whole thing with a grimy old filter screen caked in black dust. From the outside, it just looked like a pile of garbage no one would bother rummaging through. Mooley reached out and patted the metal shell gently. Bear with this shabby hiding spot for now. An ore worth 1,000,000 galactic credits, concealed among refuse. A comment drifted across the live stream at that exact moment. Is the streamer hiding more junk again? Mooley glanced at the line and replied in a good mood, yeah, just some trash. The bullet screen erupted with laughter. She's truly obsessed with scrap. This hut's probably holding all her worldly possessions. Whoever dares steal her garbage better watch out. She'd chase them for miles. Mooley restored the hut to its original messy state before stepping back outside to inspect her farm plot. After eating cabbage leaves and replenishing a sliver of mental energy from the spirit ore, she felt noticeably lighter. She'd channeled her ability to speed the growth of cabbages number 2 through number 6, their leaves now far larger. Chili number 1 and number 2 had rooted firmly, while chili number 3 sprouted a tender shoot at dusk. She jotted new observations into her device's memo pad. Cabbage number 1, benign mutation, superior strain. Outer leaves edible, suspected to restore mental energy. Her finger paused mid-writing. The live audience could not see her private notes, but the galactic net was never secure. She erased the line, restore mental energy, and rewrote it as consumption brings a pleasant physical sensation. Wealth was meant to stay hidden. Miraculous crops were no exception. As night fell, Mooley added a second layer of barriers around the farm plot. The mutated wild boar from the previous night had left her deeply shaken. She'd rather lose sleep than let the beast trample her crops again. She stowed the 2 remaining outer leaves from cabbage number 1 carefully. She ate half of one leaf, wrapping the rest in a clean scrap of cloth. Though her mental energy had recovered slightly, hunger gnawed sharper in her stomach, as if a tiny hand was clawing at her insides. Mooley resisted the urge to eat more. She needed the cabbage to last through tomorrow. The wind picked up outside the hut, rattling the metal panels. Viewership on the stream dipped, yet night owls lingered, debating whether cabbage number 1 would keep growing overnight. Mooley sat at the hut's threshold, her shovel balanced across her knees. Heavy, familiar footsteps echoed from the distant trash wasteland. Her fingers tightened around the shovel's wooden grip, and she lifted her gaze. The mutated wild boar had returned. This time, 3 scrawny gray piglets trotted along behind her. Mooley stood in the hut doorway, clutching her shovel, her gaze drifting past the sow's jagged tusks to the 3 tiny gray bundles trailing behind her. The piglets were dwarfed by their mother's massive frame. Round potbellies, stubby legs, radiation mottling streaked their backs in faint pale gray. They trotted after the sow, grunting nonstop as they rooted at the dirt with their snouts. The night owl viewers blew up the chat instantly. Wait, she brought her whole litter? She stole half a potato yesterday, now the entire family's here mooching food? Streamer, guard your cabbage at all costs. The piglets look ugly, but weirdly cute. Mooley felt no trace of fondness for them. All she could think about was her farm plot being destroyed. The sow sauntered boldly to the edge of the purified soil patch, sniffed the metal fencing, then nudged a panel lightly with her tusks. A dull thud rang out, and Mooley's brows twitched with irritation. Don't touch it. She planted the shovel firmly into the ground, her voice calm yet firm. Those are my crops. The sow lifted her head to stare straight at her. Her cloudy, tiny eyes held none of the rage from the previous night, instead, a brazen sense of familiarity, as if she owned the place. Circling around the outermost metal barriers, she reached the patch of clean, unplanted soil beside the farm plot. She bent her 4 legs and flopped down with a heavy thud. The 3 piglets scrambled to crowd around her. Some rooted at her belly, others dug at the dirt, and one even took a bite out of the new fencing Mooley had hammered in the night before. A dull ache throbbed at Mooley's temples from sheer frustration. Does she think this is a maternity ward? The live chat flooded with laughing comments, blurring across the screen. Ha ha ha, she called it a maternity ward. Sow's logic, the dirt's clean, perfect for raising piglets. The streamer's face screams, I'm moving up my pig slaughter plan. Don't hurt the babies, they're still tiny. Mooley had no intention of killing them right now. For one thing, she stood no chance against the fully grown sow. For another, these piglets had been exposed to purified soil from birth. If fed cleansed, toxin-free food, the radiation pollutants trapped in their bodies might gradually fade. Mutated beast meat was edible across the galaxy, yet processing it cost a fortune. The flavor was terrible, and many varieties carried lethal toxins. But what if she raised the piglets from infancy on purified produce? Her eyes drifted to the 3 little creatures still rooting around. Pork belly, stewed pork ribs, braised pork soup, glazed red braised pork, cured ham. Mooley's gaze lit up little by little. The sow seemed to sense her plotting, lifting her head to fix her with a cold, tusk-bearing glare. Mooley pushed her greedy culinary thoughts aside, turned, and pulled a tiny scrap of cabbage leaf from her cloth sack. It was minuscule. So small that the audience felt pity for the pigs. She's way too stingy. That leaf's smaller than my fingernail. The outer leaves of cabbage number 1 are priceless. These pigs are eating like royalty. Mooley tossed the cabbage scrap onto the ground before the sow. The sow twitched her nose, leaned down to sniff it, then instead of eating it herself, gently nudged the leaf over to her 3 piglets with her snout. The fattest piglet snatched the first bite. After 2 chews, it perked up instantly, scrabbling the dirt with its stubby legs to jostle its siblings out of the way. The other 2 swarmed in, 3 tiny heads crammed together as their happy grunts softened into sweet little squeaks. The sow lay beside them, watching without fighting for a bite. Mooley loosened her grip on the shovel. At least she prioritized her young. Fine. She had a maternal instinct that counted for something. She knelt 3 meters away from the sow to negotiate seriously. You owe me half a potato from yesterday, and now you've brought 3 piglets to camp on my land. We can't settle this debt for free. The sow flicked her tail. Once they finished the cabbage scrap, the piglets went back to rooting in the purified dirt, fully planning to settle in long term. Mooley watched them for a long moment before making up her mind. I'll pen them. The live chat fell silent for a beat. Then the screen flooded with question marks. Pen what? Pen them, does she mean raise pigs? Is a junk planet pig farm about to open for business? Wait a second, she can barely feed herself, why raise pigs? Mooley stood and set off to scavenge building materials. I can't afford to feed them now, but that doesn't mean I never will, she said, slinging her shovel toward the trash mountains. They'll fatten up, till my soil for me, and their purified manure makes perfect fertilizer. The sow can guard the piglets and watch over the farm overnight. She paused, adding earnestly, most importantly, raised on purified food from infancy, their meat might revert to unmutated quality. The chat laughed so hard viewers spammed GIFs. Gift received, 100 galactic credits. Message, Braised Pork Fund. Gift received, 200 galactic credits. Message, the piglets haven't even weaned, and you already have a full menu planned. Gift received, 66 galactic credits. Message, the sow wants to run away overnight after hearing your plans. The words Braised Pork Fund only hardened Mooley's resolve. Every credit would go toward building a sturdy pen. First, she picked an empty plot adjacent to the purified farmland. It couldn't sit too close to the crops, or the piglets would dig up her cabbages, nor too far, where the purifying aura would weaken and the sow refused to stay. She finally settled on a wind-shielded hollow, drawing a semicircle in the dirt with her shovel. This will be the pig pen. The 3 piglets trotted over to watch curiously. The fattest one was bold enough to trot right up and nudge the toe of her boot with its snout. Mooley glanced down at it. The piglet tilted its head and squeaked pleadingly. She pushed it away with a blank expression. Don't try cute tricks. No extra food for you. The chat lost it again. It's trying to win her over with cuteness. The streamer's heart of stone. She's not heartless, she genuinely has no spare food to give. Building the pig pen proved far more complicated than her shanty hut. If the hut caved, only she would freeze through the night. If the pig pen collapsed, all 4 pigs would rampage through her farm and destroy everything. Mooley first cleared all sharp, jagged debris from the plot with her shovel, then expended a small portion of her with spirit ability to purify the topsoil inside the pen until it was soft enough not to cut the piglet's delicate skin. The purification left her lips parched, and she immediately bit off another scrap of cabbage leaf to replenish energy. She couldn't afford to collapse. The pen had to be fully enclosed tonight. If the pig family snuck into the crops after dark, she'd wake up to nothing but hoof prints trampling her plants. She dragged 3 large metal panels from the rubble pile, then tore free 2 bent support frames. The uneven, jagged edges of the panels slid firmly into the dirt to form fencing. The frames anchored the corners, secured tight with thin scrap metal wire. At first, the sow watched her warily. Once she realized Mooley had no intention of harming the piglets and was only clanging away building barriers nearby, she settled back onto the clean soil. The 3 piglets were fascinated by the new fence, trotting over every few minutes to root at the newly planted metal sheets. By the 3rd time she lifted the fat piglet away from the fencing, blue veins bulged on her forehead. If you keep gnawing the barriers, I'll name you troublemaker number 1. The piglet huffed a loud grunt and wandered off to chew on her water pipe instead. Mooley took a deep breath and revised the name. Fine, you're braised pork number 1. The chat exploded with hysterical laughter. Braised pork number 1, that's perfect. Are the other 2 steamed pork number 2 and ham number 3? Sow's perspective. I brought my babies here for a detox retreat, and she's labeling them menu items. Day 1 of the Junk Planet Pig Farm, streamer's mental state fully intact. Mooley actually assigned official labels to each piglet. The chubby one, braised pork number 1. The piglet with a nicked ear, ham number 2. The smallest, skittish one that always hid under the sow's legs, spare rib number 3. She carved 3 small metal tags and stuck them beside the pen's entrance, instead of tying them onto the pigs themselves. The sow huffed a sharp gust of air through her nostrils at the 3 metal markers. Mooley explained matter-of-factly for easier management. Viewers in the live stream started a brand new conversation thread. New livestock zone added to the Junk Planet Farm. Who's the top star, cabbage number 1 or braised pork number 1? I'm voting cabbage number 1. Braised pork number 1 will steal crops. The night deepened. Metal wire left red indents wrapped around Mooley's fingers, splitting open old raw scrapes on her palms. She bound her hands with rags and kept twisting wire to fasten the final fence section. The pig pen looked shoddy at best. Metal panels jutted at uneven heights, support frames leaned crookedly, and a scrap old ship hatch served as a temporary gate. Yet it was sturdy, strong enough to hold the piglets in, and the sow could not break through without violently smashing the barriers apart. Mooley spread a layer of purified dried fibrous hay across the pen floor and set a small bowl of clean water in the corner. Naturally, nothing came for free. She stood at the gate, staring straight at the sow. "You may stay here, but no digging up my crops. You eat my food and shelter under my land. You'll repay me later." The sow seemed to neither fully understand nor completely miss her meaning. Slowly, she rose to her feet and herded the 3 piglets into the pen. The piglets immediately set to rooting at the dry hay, while the sow circled the enclosure once before settling onto the cleanest patch of soil. Mooley locked the pen gate tight with metal wire. At that exact moment, every night owl in the stream sent identical synchronized comments across the screen. "The Junk Planet Pig Farm is officially open. Congratulations, streamer, on your 4 new pigs. Grow big fast, braised pork number 1. Mooley leaned against the outer fence, far too worn out to even crack a smile. She glanced at her farm plot, then the pig pen, and thought of the seed box and spirit energy ore hidden deep in her shanty hut. She had land now, growing vegetables, and pigs had wandered right to her doorstep. Everything was ramshackle and makeshift, but this polluted trash planet was slowly turning into a proper farm. Just as she twisted the final length of wire tight around the fence, a private message alert popped up on her portable terminal. The sender's account bore an official blue verification badge. Sender, Interstellar Botany Institute. Message content, a single line. "We ask whether the living green plants displayed in your live broadcast are genuine biological specimens." Mooley stared at the message for several long seconds. The bright blue official badge glared starkly. Their wording was polite and cautious, yet the words felt just as threatening as mutated beast tracks deep in the wasteland. Genuine living plants? If she admitted they were real, she knew exactly what would follow. Academic institutions would demand samples, and wealthy conglomerates would attempt to buy her land outright. The live streaming platform would push her broadcast to galactic prominence. Every inch of her tiny farm with barely 20 cabbage leaves would fall under thousands of greedy eyes. Mooley glanced down at her farm plot. Cabbage number 1 unfurled its broad leaves, and delicate chili seedlings swayed in the wind. Braised pork no. 1 lay curled up asleep rooting at the hay inside the pig pen. Her shanty leaked frigid wind, her water bucket sat nearly empty, and her fencing still leaned crookedly. She was so destitute she refused to throw away a single scrap of metal panel. Now was the worst possible time. She was not foolish enough to make that mistake. Mooley typed a reply into her terminal. "It's just broadcast special effects. Thank you for your interest." After sending the message, she closed the private message alert and shifted the terminal's camera half an inch away from the farm plot. Chat comments still focused entirely on the pig pen. "Braised pork number 1 sleeps in such an ugly position, ha ha." Did the streamer just reply to someone's message? Who messaged her? Could someone be trying to buy her cabbages? Mooley slung her shovel over one shoulder, her tone calm and steady. "No buyers. I'm expanding my farmland today." The phrase, expanding farmland, instantly reignited veteran viewers' excitement. Another land reclamation project? 5 square meters already fit cabbages, chili, and pigs. Expanding further will turn this into a full-scale farm. Don't push yourself too hard. Your hands split open yesterday. Mooley ignored the concerned comments. She walked to the back of her shanty, lifted the tattered filter screen, and pulled the 3-layer cloth-wrapped spirit ore from its scrap metal hiding spot. Layer by layer, she unwrapped the rags, revealing a sliver of silvery white crystal. Tiny flecks of light drifted along its internal veins, as if frozen clear water had been trapped inside stone. Mooley closed her eyes, gripping the ore, and drew a faint wisp of spirit energy into her mind. Cool, gentle warmth flowed from her palm into her spiritual sea. This warmth soothed her overtaxed, dried-out spirit core after days of relentless energy expenditure. She did not take more than enough power to finish her day's labor, then rewrapped the ore securely. Precious treasures must be used sparingly. She tucked the ore back into its garbage hiding place, covered it with the filter screen, and brushed ash over the top. Hold on a little longer. I'll find a proper safe for you someday. The live camera faced outward. No one caught her quiet murmur. Meanwhile, chaos erupted at the headquarters of the Interstellar Botany Institute. Dozens of holographic screens lined the conference room, all playing recorded footage of Mooley's live stream. The images were blown up to maximum resolution, slowed frame by frame to capture every detail: cabbage shoots sprouting, chili seedlings budding, and leaves stretching open. A white-haired professor pressed his fingers hard against the table, his knuckles bleached white with tension. Pause, replay the segment. The footage froze on the shot of cabbage number 1 shooting upward from a tiny seedling. A young researcher beside him pulled up data instantly. Light reflects real moisture along the leaf edges, and stomatal opening patterns align perfectly with the ambient humidity fluctuations. Holographic special effects can replicate plant shapes, but they cannot mimic this natural growth feedback. Another professor gritted his teeth. Her location is LX 7749, an unstable junk planet. Stable living plant life cannot survive there. But we're watching it right on screen, the white-haired professor replied, lowering his voice to a sharp hush. For decades, we've poured hundreds of billions of galactic credits into ecodomes just to sustain fragmented plant strains. She grew them with a shovel. Silence fell across the conference table. Someone projected Mooley's reply onto the main wall display. It's just broadcast special effects. Thank you for your interest. The line felt like a bucket of cold water doused over their hopes. The young researcher ran a hand through his messy hair. She's denying everything. Could this really be a staged live broadcast production crew? Have we reviewed her landing inventory records? Confirmed. Only a broken portable terminal, a shovel, an incomplete toolkit. No standard survival dome, no large hologram projectors, no energy shielding generators. The white-haired professor stared at the cabbage leaves on screen, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Keep monitoring her stream. Draw no hasty conclusions and do not provoke her. One scholar spoke up anxiously. What if corporate conglomerates discover her first? The white-haired professor lifted a hand, tapping 2 slow knocks against the tabletop. That is exactly why we cannot rush to contact her. The girl is highly vigilant. Her reply just now was a clear warning to back off. The Botany Institute fell quiet, yet tracked the broadcast around the clock. Back on the junk planet, Mooley had already begun her work. First, she remarked the borders of her original 5-square-meter purified plot, then measured a safe buffer zone surrounding the pig pen. Crops could not sit directly beside the pig enclosure. Despite braised pork number 1's silly appearance, it dug dirt with incredible force and would root out entire cabbage heads if given the chance. This section will grow leafy greens. She etched the first boundary line with the tip of her shovel. This stretch is reserved for root vegetables. A second line extended 3 meters outward. I'll build trellises over here later for climbing vine crops. Her tone was placid, as if mapping out a fully mature, thriving farm. Beyond the camera's view stretched endless gray-black toxic wasteland, polluted dust swirling on the wind to coat her trousers. Viewers laughed and spammed gifs in the chat. She's genuinely planning for the future. Other exiles break down in despair on junk planets, and she's figuring out where to place trellises. This woman's terrifying. She's already mapped out vine support frames. Mooley did not crack a smile. Purifying toxic soil was far harder than drawing farm plans. She pressed her palm flat against the new stretch of gray earth, spreading her with spirit energy thin and delicate. First, she stripped away residual radiation, then separated toxic mineral dust particles. The captured pollutants condensed into fine black sand, which she piled into a deep pit outside the purified farm zone. Scoop after scoop of dirt, sweat quickly beaded at her temples. When the wind cut across her skin, it chilled her scalp to a tight throb. Sand and grit rubbed open the old wounds on her palms, streaks of blood seeped into the soil. She winced, wrapped her hands in rags, and pressed the earth down again. Spirit or had replenished her mental power, yet the desolate star's pollution was far too severe. Every square meter of soil she purified sent stabbing twinges through her temples, as if pricked by fine needles. She chewed a cabbage leaf slowly, swallowing its faint spirit restoring sweetness down her throat. The sow inside the pig pen stood and watched her through the fence slats. The 3 piglets crowded up to the gate too. Braze number 1 nudged the wire mesh with its snout, letting out soft grunts. Mooley glanced up at them. Quit causing trouble, and I'll slip you a vegetable stock once I'm done. Braze number 1 could not understand a word, but it grunted even louder in response. The live chat erupted with laughter. Vegetable stock salary system officially launched. Even the pigs know the streamers got good stuff. She's such a master at painting empty promises. From dawn till dusk, Mooley only paused 4 times in total. Once to drink water, twice to munch cabbage leaves, and once to check if the chili sprouts had snapped in the wind. Every other minute, she purified polluted earth, turned soil, leveled the ground, and dug irrigation trenches. The newly purified earth shifted from ash-black to rich umber, its healthy hue spreading inch by inch. 20 square meters sounded trivial, yet amid the stars' lifeless gray wasteland, the plot resembled a fresh-cut wound, revealing the flowing vitality hidden beneath the grime. By evening, she shoveled the last load of contaminated soil into an isolation pit, her arms too sore to lift high. Mooley stood at the field's edge and stared down at her land. Her original 5-square-meter test patch sat like a beating heart at the center. Ringed by the newly expanded 15 square meters, she had redirected the drip irrigation hoses, letting clean water seep gently into the fresh soil. Cabbages, chili plants, the pig pen, and her shanty hut all fell within the rough yet clear outline of a fledgling farm. Her chest rose and fell slowly. After a long moment of restraint, the corners of her mouth tugged upward in a faint smile. 20 square meters. Her voice was quiet, yet the chat flooded the screen instantly. Desolate Star Farm expansion complete. From 5 to 20 square meters, somehow I feel that sense of achievement too. Can the streamer grow more cabbages now? Cabbage number 1, your home just got bigger. Mooley planted her shovel into the ground and turned to grab her seed box. The soil right at her feet shifted faintly. Her hand froze midair. At the outermost edge of the purified zone, a black vine pushed up from underground. Slender, its bark resembled charred leather, lined with dense sharp thorns. The thorn tips glowed faint indigo purple, and tiny black corrosion spots marred the newly clean soil surrounding it. When her wood element perception brushed against the vine, a sharp burning pain surged backward through her mental power. Deadly poison. The black vine slithered slowly along the ground, its pointed tip aimed straight at her vegetable plot. Mooley spun around, snatched up her shovel, and pressed the blade against the vine's front end. The moment the metal touched its bark, a faint corrosive hiss echoed. Venom ate a pale indent into the shovel's surface, wispy white smoke curling upward. 1 second prior, the chat had been celebrating her land expansion. The next, chaos exploded across the screen. What on earth is that? That can't be a plant, it's moving. Don't touch it. It looks toxic just by sight. Streamer, step back right now. Mooley did not retreat. She locked her gaze on the vine, her wrist rock steady. Pinned under the shovel, the vine did not thrash. Instead, its thorns slowly opened and closed. It seemed to be sniffing out the moisture and plant life inside the purified plot. Its aim was far too precise. The wasteland stretched endlessly in all directions, yet it had burrowed up exactly at the edge of her purified land, targeting her crops without hesitation. Mooley's eyes darkened. Here to steal my vegetables? Her words cut through the chat's taut panic, tilting the tense atmosphere into absurdity. This is no time to be thinking about veggies. No, she's right, it's definitely after her crops. Cabbage number 1 is in danger. The sow in the pig pen rose to its feet, snuffling toward the vine and rumbling a low warning from its throat. It herded the 3 piglets safely behind its bulk. Braze number 1, oblivious to danger, tried to squeeze past, only to be shoved back by a heavy hoof. Mooley hesitated to strike it down outright. Nothing survived the desolate star without formidable defenses. This vine's venom was lethal, cutting it open would spray poison, wasting all the newly expanded soil she'd worked so hard to purify. She knelt down, letting ability shield her fingers. A stabbing burn instantly flooded her mental channels. Toxins swarmed up her fingers like tiny biting insects. Mooley's fingers twitched in mild spasms, a thin sheen of sweat breaking out across her forehead. She attempted to purify the poison, pressing green energy into the vine. A small patch of its black bark faded to dark brown, and the purple glow on its thorns dimmed slightly. But the effort drained a massive chunk of her mental power, leaving a throbbing ache at the back of her skull. This vine's toxins were absurdly concentrated. Purifying a single inch of the vine cost more than 3 times the energy needed to cleanse regular soil. Mooley pulled her hand away, her fingertips bright red from the burn. She rinsed the residual venom off with clean water, then stripped the residue from her skin. Full purification isn't worth the energy cost. She spoke the thought aloud, for herself and the live audience alike. Seeing her red fingertips, the viewers spammed the screen in alarm. If it's not worth it, stay away. Can't we just burn it? The streamer doesn't have flame weapons, only a shovel. Let's crowdfund a laser blade. Shipping alone starts at 150,000 star coins, forget it. Muli stared at the toxic vine, her mind racing rapidly. The vine actively sought purified soil and water sources, meaning it was hypersensitive. Its roots stretched all the way up from deep polluted strata, proving an extensive root system and unmatched vitality. Aggressive, poison-resistant, far-reaching, and capable of horizontal spread, killing it would be a waste of energy. But if she could tame it. Muli glanced at her 20 square meters of newly cleansed land. Her biggest limitation right now was her small purification zone. Every meter she expanded required her to strip pollution grain by hand. Plant roots, however, naturally remediate soil, draw groundwater, and channel vitality deep underground. What if this toxic vine's sprawling roots became her underground purification network? The idea crossed her mind, and her breathing softened. The chat still screamed for her to chop it down. Instead, she set her shovel aside, shifted her stance, and pressed her palm flat against a thorn-free stretch. "Don't sting me." Her tone was calm, as if negotiating with braised number 1 the piglet. The live audience stared in confusion. Is she talking to a poisonous vine? Streamer, do plants even understand speech? Cabbage number 1, I get it, don't ask. Muli ignored the scrolling comments. Her wood element affinity seeped slowly from her palm. This time, she made no attempt to neutralize the venom, bypassing the toxic layers entirely to touch the living veins at the vine's core. At first, the black vine resisted fiercely. Its life energy felt cold and coarse, like a serpent coiled for years in contaminated mud. The moment Muli's power slipped inside, venom forced it back, leaving her fingers numb and burning. She did not force her way through, thinning her energy into a fine wisp. Tracing the cleaner internal veins deep into the vine, she moved 1 meter down, then 3 meters, then 7 meters. The root system grew increasingly tangled the deeper she delved, its lateral roots spreading far and wide through discarded piping, crushed rock, and bands of toxic mud. Its thick central taproot plunged over 10 meters underground, wrapped around ancient concrete rubble, endlessly absorbing toxic mineral deposits from the depths. Muli's spine stiffened with realization. This was no ordinary mutated weed, but a dominant survivor forged by the brutal ecosystem. It relied on venom for defense, deep roots to seize water and minerals, and a heightened sense to detect and spread toward clean soil. Dangerous, yet incredibly valuable. She opened her eyes, gaze locking on the vine's pointed tip. You feed on poison, and I need clean earth. The vine's thorns opened and closed faintly. Leave my vegetables untouched, and I'll reserve a pit of contaminated muck just for you. The chat flooded with question marks. She's actually striking a deal with it. Signing an employment contract with a toxic vine? The streamer's farm crew keeps getting more absurd. Cabbages, pigs, and now a venomous vine. Muli stood and tended to the most urgent task first, containment. Whether taming it proved possible later or not, she could not let it reach her vegetable plot overnight. She grabbed her shovel and dug a trench between the vine and purified land. Narrow yet deep, she lined the pit's base with polluted debris and shards of sharp scrap metal, then compacted the soil on the farm's side of the trench tight. She guided the vine's front end outside the trench, carving out a small dedicated contaminated pit beside it. She scooped a tiny pile of toxic black sand she'd filtered earlier and tipped it into the pit. The black vine drew near the sand, coiling its tip around the grit as the purple glow on its thorns brightened slightly. It made no further attempt to crawl toward the vegetables, instead lingering at the toxic pit to absorb the pollutants. Muli's eyes lit up. This could work. She added a small amount of residual contaminated water, carefully portioned, enough for the vine to feed on without allowing it to grow too rapidly. Trial period for now. The audience watched, equal parts nervous and unable to look away. She's really keeping this thing alive? Does the streamer want to recruit every living thing she sees? Desolate Star sends a toxic vine to scare her. Streamer, can you work a shift? Once the isolation trench was finished, Muli's fingers trembled with exhaustion. She returned to her shanty, retrieved a scrap of rusted metal, and hammered 2 words into it to prop beside the vine. Trial vine. The chat burst into hysterical laughter. Trial vine, ha ha. Temporary staff treatment. If it performs well, does it get promoted to full-time? Muli did not laugh. She pulled up her memo terminal and typed a log entry. Black toxic vine, highly venomous, taproot deeper than 10 meters, drawn to clean soil and water sources. Capable of absorbing polluted residue. Must isolate for observation. Attempt trade of contaminated pits in exchange for root system cooperation. After writing, she crossed out the phrase root system control and rewrote it as potential mutually beneficial partnership. No matter how aggressive a plant might be, it remained a living creature. Forcing submission would only trigger backlash. Gentle guidance brought long-term harmony. She prepared to jot down more notes when her live terminal flashed a traffic alert. Live viewership surging rapidly. New audience traffic source. Star Network viral reposts. The tone of the chat shifted entirely. Swarms of unfamiliar accounts flooded in, all bearing identical delicate snowflake avatars. So this is the fake heiress everyone's talking about? Heard she rambles to weeds ever since Exile. Hilarious. Sent over from Miss Mu Shue's repost, here to watch her lose her mind on the desolate star. Muli's fingers paused at the edge of her terminal. A highlighted repost was pinned to the top of the live feed, pushed by the system. Mu Shue's account bore a gleaming gold verified badge, her caption crystal clear for all to see. Poor fake little sister of mine, she's even started talking to weeds now. Has radiation fried her brain? The chat erupted like oil poured into boiling water. Snowflake avatars flooded the screen, one mocking comment piling atop another. Longtime regular viewers who'd followed Muli for days refused to back down, sparking full-blown arguments in the comment section. Saying she's lost her mind? Where were all of you when she grew actual cabbages? LOL. You actually buy this scripted Desolate Star livestream nonsense? A script? What production can make pigs line up neatly in a pen? Miss Mu Shue is just worried about her. Why are her fans so defensive? Wash the word concern out of your mouth first. Live viewership climbed nonstop. 30 million. 50 million. 80 million. When the count hit 120 million, the platform slapped a viral trending label on Muli's stream. Her terminal grew hot to the touch. The video resolution auto-upgraded, and countless more viewers connected to the holographic scent-sharing function. Muli glanced at the massive viewer count, no visible reaction crossing her face. She propped her terminal beside the chili plot, ladled a bowl of clean water from her bucket, and poured it slowly around chili number one's roots. Fertilizing the chilies today. Her tone was utterly ordinary, as if oblivious to the vicious bickering filling the screen. The new viewers grew even more irritable. Why pretend to be calm? Is she too scared to respond to Miss Mu Shue? This fake heiress milks pity for views and acts like a proper farm owner now. Longtime fans slammed their keyboards in frustration. Quit arguing, she's about to nurture the chilies. Newcomers, shut up and watch. You'll see real living plants in a second. Chili number 1, we're counting on you. Muli scooped a handful of purified mineral-rich soil and mixed it with dry fiber ash collected from the pig pen. The piglet's manure carried too much surface contamination to use raw. Yet the trampled dry fibers from the pen held trace organic matter. Once cleansed, the ash made mild fertilizer for the chilies. She buried the fertilized soil beside the plant's roots and pressed her fingertips to the earth's surface. Gentle wood element energy seeped into the roots. Chili number 1's thin, spindly stalk slowly straightened, its leaves deepening to a rich emerald, fresh new shoots budding at its crown. Muli avoided overstimulating its growth, guiding the roots to anchor firmly before encouraging upward branching. The camera zoomed in, letting every viewer witness the plant's dramatic transformation. Tender green branches split outward, leaves unfurling wide, and tiny flower buds swelled along each stem node. The buds bloomed little by little into small pure white blossoms, their petals vivid against the gray wasteland backdrop. Half the fighting chat fell silent. What is that? It has to be holographic special effects. That growth rate is completely unnatural. Veteran viewer here, she's always like this, yet it still shocks me every time. Muli twisted thin scrap metal into simple stakes to prop up the delicate chili branches. Her touch was featherlight, brushing the blooms as if handling tiny glowing lanterns. The small white flowers wilted quickly, tiny slender fruit forming at the base of each spent bloom. Pale green baby chilies swelled from rice grain size to finger length, plumping steadily as they matured. Strings of bright glossy green fruit hung heavy from the branches, like tiny jade pendants dangling amid the desolate star's ash-gray dirt. Longtime fans lost their minds with excitement. Chili number 1 did it. It bloomed. It bore fruit. Newcomers, open your eyes wide. This is farming, not insanity. The Snowflake Avatar fans remained stubbornly skeptical. They're definitely fake fruits hung on beforehand as props. High-tier hologram tech can pull this trick off. Miss Mu Shue was right, she just chases clout with cheap gimmicks. Muli paid them no mind. She pulled out a small blade and plucked the first fully ripened red chili, only as long as her finger. Its skin shifted from pale green to a deep glossy scarlet. She rinsed it with clean water and held it up to the camera. The holographic scent sensor captured its faint raw vegetal aroma, broadcasting it across the stream. The audience guessed endlessly. Is this just a decoration? Can you even eat it? It looks quite pretty, though. Mooley glanced at the flood of confused comments and spoke rarely, breaking her silence. Chili, used for seasoning. Eating it plain will burn your tongue. With that, she brought the red chili to her lips and bit down. A crisp snap echoed through every connected terminal. The next instant, sharp spicy heat flooded the holographic scent-sharing network. This was no soft, mild fragrance. A harsh burning tingle shot straight up viewers' nasal passages and seared the base of their tongues, a small flame blazing from mouth to throat. Accustomed only to cloying artificial nutrient solutions, the interstellar audience had never experienced such intense heat. The chat descended into chaotic panic. It burns. My tongue feels like it's on fire. Help, what kind of torture stream is this? I insulted her earlier, now how do I turn the scent sink off? It won't shut down, my hands are shaking, ha ha. Mooley's own earlobes flushed bright red from the spice. She pressed her lips tight, caught her breath, and sipped a mouthful of clean water. The spicy heat exploded across her palate, wiping away the stale artificial aftertaste of nutrient paste and moss that had lingered in her mouth for days. Her eyes lit up with delight. Real chilies. Actual, living chilies. Back in the apocalypse, she'd fought swarms of mutated rats half the night just to get a handful of chili seeds. Now here on the desolate star, chili number 1 bore ripe fruit. She carefully stowed the remaining half chili away. I'll harvest small quantities first before saving seeds. The stream still buzzed with cries of agony. Even Mu Shue's fans were too distracted to mock her. How can she eat that without flinching? My nose is numb and she's calmly logging notes. This woman is terrifyingly resilient. Chili number 1, I concede you're a tough customer. Longtime fans cheered triumphantly. Who said this was holographic effects earlier? Come on, does special effect spice burn your sinuses? Why are Mu Shue's fans quiet now? Did the spice make them cry? The whole internet agrees. Chilies are weapons-grade heat. Mooley resecured the chili branches and topped up chili number 2's water. The skyrocketing viewership did nothing to shift her steady pace, nor did she bother denying accusations of staging fake plants. Praise or scorn, neither could tend her fields for her. Her only concerns were how many ripe chilies hung on the vines, how many seeds she could save, and whether she could cook her first properly seasoned meal. Things were far different on Capital Star. Inside a lavish lounge suite, Mu Shue repeatedly closed and reopened the live broadcast feed. The spicy scent sink had reached her terminal too. Her glass of sweet luxury drink had been knocked over, syrup spilling all across the tabletop. Her brokerage assistant cautiously handed her wet wipes. Miss, should we remove the repost? Mu Shue scrubbed her fingertips roughly with the wipe, rubbing her skin raw. Remove it? All that traffic's flowing straight to her. If I delete it now, everyone will think I'm scared of her. The assistant bowed her head, not daring to reply. Mu Shue stared at the screen, watching Mooley hunched over her logbook, documenting the chili's growth. Her lips pressed into a tight, bitter line. That face was still smudged with mud, her clothes tattered rags, and the desolate star wind threatened to bury her beneath dust at any moment. Yet 120 million people fixed their eyes on her, watching her farm vegetables, watching her bite into raw chili, watching her brush off vicious slander as trivial background noise. This quiet indifference stung far worse than any shouting match. Mu Shue tapped open her fan group chat and sent a voice note. She dares not prove who the real and fake heiress are, so we'll gather evidence instead. Anyone who can verify those plants are holographic special effects gets a cash reward from me. Moments later, a highlighted pinned comment blazed across the top of the live feed, posted by the group administrator. The true heiress has issued a bounty, 100,000 star coins for anyone who proves these plants are holographic illusions. The words 100,000 star coins hung over the stream like a slab of raw meat tossed to a pack of starving wolves. Dozens of analytical threads popped up across the Star network within minutes. Some users posted screenshots of Mooley's farmland, claiming the leaf reflections did not match the desolate star's unique lighting. Others dissected frame by frame clips of the chili growth, falsely alleging spliced footage. A long list of high-end device models was cited, with posters swearing it was a simulation. The headlines of the posts grew more outrageous one after another. Exposed. Fake heiress of the wasteland planet fabricated everything. A 100,000-star coin bounty is up for grabs. Holographic engineer digs deep into Mu Li's live stream scam. The so-called ancient plants are nothing but a cheap marketing ploy. Mu Li knew nothing of these posts. She squatted in front of her cabbage patch, her expression grimmer than if she'd spotted toxic vines. All 5 cabbages had fully ripened. Cabbage number 1 had long since grown into the patch's giant, bolstered by spirit, ore, and purified soil. Numbers 2 through 5 were nearly 3 times larger than ordinary cabbages. Each plant bore layered outer leaves with thick, water-filled stalks, wafting a fresh sweet scent on every gust of wind. Number 6 grew slower, yet it would still feed her for 2 full days. The problem? There was far too much. Mu Li stared at the row of huge cabbages, a faint crease forming between her brows. They grew far too fast. The bullet comments nearly laughed out of exasperation upon hearing this. Is that even a human thing to say? We'd beg for a single leaf, and she complains they grew too quickly. Streamer, do you know how much a single cabbage leaf sells for across the star network? Is she gonna refuse to sell them again? Mu Li truly had no intention of selling. First, interstellar shipping cost a fortune, making vegetable sales unprofitable. Second, she could not expose the plant's vitality and special properties to too many outsiders. Third, her cabbages were meant to feed herself, raise her pigs, reserve seeds, and replenish the soil. She took a small knife and sliced off the outer leaves cleanly yet carefully, only trimming the foliage without damaging the tender hearts. Soon, a mountain of cabbage leaves piled up on a flat metal slab. The leaves were enormous. One single leaf could cover half her arm. Mu Li cut several leaves into strips and split them into 3 portions. 1 portion for herself, 1 for the pig pen, and the last set aside for preservation observation. She bit into a crisp stalk first. Sweet, refreshing juice flooded her mouth, gently soothing her mental energy. She ate slowly and thoroughly, not wasting a single ragged leaf edge. The fresh cabbage aroma spread through the holographic shared sensory feed. New viewers who'd flooded in from the bounty posts had come ready to pick apart her lies, but the scent slowed their typing to a crawl. This smell, can special effects really be this detailed? Don't fall for the trick. 100,000-star coins await whoever proves she's a fraud. All I'm wondering now is whether she'll sell the cabbages. The Star Network's tech forums were buzzing just as fiercely. Industry experts tore every so-called exposé post to shreds. Holographic projection equipment? Check interstellar entry cargo records. When Mu Li arrived on LX-7749, she only had a broken terminal and a shovel, not even a complete survival kit. High-grade holographic rigs require stable power supplies and shielding matrices. No energy fluctuations show up in her wasteland live footage. The chilly growth footage shows continuous real-time environmental feedback, wind direction, humidity, and leaf shadows all align perfectly. Faking this would cost more than an entire medium resource planet. Would she waste that just for petty stream gifts? Who's insane here, her or you? Before long, the comment sections under the fraud hunting posts flooded with mocking retorts. That 100,000-star coin bounty sounds nice, but your fabricated evidence is as thin as watered-down nutrient paste. Suggest the bounty hunters first prove holographic gear exists on this barren planet. If she really hit a top-tier holographic system on LX-7749, that'd make her even more impressive. Mu Li remained oblivious to the raging debate across the Star Network. She carried the chopped cabbage leaves over to the pig pen. Braised pork number 1 charged forward first, stubby legs scrambling at top speed. Ham number 2 trotted close behind, while rib number 3 got shoved and nearly tipped over. The sow lowered her head to nudge her fat piglets aside, letting the skinniest one eat first. Mu Li watched the scene and tapped braised pork number 1 lightly on its forehead. No pushing. Line up by your numbers. Braised pork number 1 oinked in protest, but never stopped gobbling. The piglets wagged their tails furiously as they munched cabbage. The sow slowly chewed a leaf too. Her once cloudy eyes brightened a little, and the radiation mottling across her back seemed to fade slightly. Mu Li jotted a quick note in her terminal. Purified soil-grown cabbage helps reduce pollution side effects in young mutated beasts. Long-term observation required for adult specimens. The viewers, however, only watched her feed precious ancient vegetable leaves to pigs, their hearts aching in envy. Don't feed them. I'd volunteer to be a pig instead. Braised pork number 1 eats better than I do. I wouldn't touch the premium nutrient paste from Mu Shue's household anymore. I just want the leaf hanging out of that pig's mouth. No one's claimed the bounty yet, but the pigs get to eat ancient vegetables first. After feeding the pigs, Muli turned back to the massive pile of leftover cabbage leaves on the metal slab and fell silent. There was still far too much. Even eating 3 meals a day alone, she could never finish all of it. Cabbage wilted quickly without proper storage. The planet's extreme temperature swings and omnipresent toxic dust would ruin them fast. Wasting food crossed her absolute bottom line. Back in the apocalypse, a single clean cabbage leaf could be traded for half a sack of crystal cores. She would not let these cabbages rot. Muli rummaged through her makeshift hut, pulling out ragged cloth, metal tins, old sealed pouches, and scavenged glass shards. Nothing fit her needs. What containers she had were unclean, and the sealed ones far too small. She tried air-drying the leaves, but toxic dust swirled in every wind gust. Building a dust-proof screen would take far too long. The live stream audience fretted alongside her. Can you freeze them somehow? The planet's freezing at night, but they'll rot once the day heats up, right? Does she own a fridge? She doesn't even have a proper door for her hut. Why not feed all of it to the pigs? Muli's brows furrowed deeper when she saw that last comment. They can't eat this much. She paused, then added, they haven't fattened up yet. Wasting good produce on them is pointless. Braised pork number 1 was still licking cabbage juice off the ground. Completely unaware it had just been deemed a waste of food. The bullet comments erupted in laughter. Braised pork number 1. Thanks a lot, human. She's truly frugal. Every leaf has to serve a vital purpose. Muli sat at the hut's entrance, staring at the cabbages for a long while. She knew dozens of vegetable preservation methods: air drying, underground cellaring, pickling, fermenting. Yet the wasteland lacked stable underground storage cellars, and air drying risked contamination from toxic dust. Pickling required salt, sterile containers, and something to compact and seal the jars. Salt. Muli glanced toward the distant mineral vein range. Last time near the underground ore layers, she'd spotted white crystalline deposits that tasted salty. Though tainted with pollutants and impurities, with proper purification, they could be usable. Containers. Her gaze drifted to the depths of the rubble heaps. A few days prior, while scavenging for water pipes, she'd glimpsed an intact clay pot crushed beneath half an alloy beam. She'd left it behind back then. It was too heavy to haul. Now she realized its wide mouth and thick walls made it perfect for pickling vegetables. Muli stood and grabbed her shovel. The bullet comments instantly grew alert. Where's she off to this time? Dusk's falling, don't wander too far. Her face looks like she just spotted hidden treasure. Muli covered the remaining cabbage leaves with rags and headed toward the rubble. Looking for a jar, she said, her footsteps quickening. Halfway there, she added a second line, to make pickled cabbage. Muli spent half an hour digging through rubble before hauling the clay pot out from under the broken alloy beam. The pot stood taller than her knee, coated in thick black ash, its mouth intact save for a tiny chipped edge that wouldn't ruin the seal. She pried away the metal beam pinning it down, cleared surrounding gravel, and lifted the pot. Its weight dragged her arms downward. It was heavy, but that weight was a blessing. Thick walls meant stability and a likely tight seal. Viewers watched her trudge back to camp covered in grime, hauling the massive pot, and comments streamed nonstop. She actually found a jar? It looks half ancient relic, half trash. Does she pick up every single storage object she finds? She mentioned pickled cabbage. What even is that? Muli offered no explanation. She carried the clay pot beside her hut and scraped off the outer black ash with jagged metal scraps. The ash was laced with toxic dust, so she swept away contaminants with her wood element power after every scrape, then rinsed the pot with scarce clean water. Water was far too precious to waste, so she washed it sparingly. She dumped the first grimy rinse water into a toxic waste pit, wiped the pot down with a damp cloth for the second pass, and purified the clay's inner walls slowly with her power for the final clean. The pot's true color emerged beneath the grime, a dull earthy yellow, rough-hewn, with fine firing lines lining its interior. Muli tapped the side with her finger. The dull, solid thud told her everything she needed. It'll work. Longtime viewers reacted as if a massive project had just begun. It'll work. Her standards are so low out here on the wasteland. She's clearly thrilled, even if her face doesn't show it. Jar. Promoted from garbage heap to family heirloom. The pile of cabbage leaves still rested on the metal slab. After cutting the outer foliage off each cabbage, their tender hearts stood firm in the soil. Mooley stroked the stalk of cabbage number 1, checking the cut surfaces for toxic dust infection. Then she trickled a thin layer of purified water around its roots. "Keep growing," she murmured softly, as if assigning work to a subordinate. A gust of wind swayed number 1's leaves. The bullet comments immediately teased her. "Cabbage number 1, understood, boss. Quit petting me, you're still not selling me off. Streamer, hurry up and talk about the pickled cabbage, I'm dying of curiosity." Mooley heaped a large bundle of cut cabbage onto the clean metal slab. The leaves were enormous. Every knife stroke split the crisp stalk with a clear crunch that carried straight through the live feed. The white stalks oozed clear, fresh juice, layered with vibrant green foliage so vivid it made viewers' throats tighten. She cut quickly, slicing wide leaves into chunks and thick stalks into separate strips. Her blade was blunt, so she adjusted her wrist angle to cut cleanly, soon turning the pile of cabbage into neat uniform pieces. Even new viewers still spamming bounty accusations slowed to watch her work. I have to admit, she's surprisingly skilled with a knife. They claim she was a fake wealthy heiress back home. What noble lady chops vegetables like this? Turn on the shared scent hologram. I need to smell the cabbage. Mooley loaded the chopped cabbage into a clean shell-shaped metal basin, then set off toward the mineral veins once more. She did not travel far. A few days prior, hunting for water pipes, she'd memorized the location of the white crystalline deposits. Wedged in black rock fissures, thin crusts glinting like dried frost, she scraped a small handful free with her blade and rubbed the crystals between her fingertips first. Salty, yet riddled with bitter, toxic impurities, Mooley did not use them raw. She carried the crystals back to camp, dumped them in a dented metal cup, and dissolved them with a splash of water. She then sifted the mixture slowly with her power. Toxic particles separated and sank as dark gray grit. While bitter mineral sediment settled at the cup's bottom, leaving behind clear brine, she poured the purified salt water onto a flat, clean metal sheet and used scrap, reflective metal to focus sunlight, evaporating the water little by little. Thin white salt grains recrystallized in its place. Homemade natural rock salt, Wasteland Edition. Mooley brushed a grain onto her fingertip and touched it lightly to her tongue. The salt's bitterness was gone, leaving pure clean salinity. The live stream flooded with confused question marks. Did she just taste rocks? Is that stuff edible? I can't find any records of pickled cabbage or the salt anywhere in the database. Did ancient Earth humans perform weird ritual stuff like this? Mooley stored the purified rock salt in a small box and returned to the clay pot. First, she sprinkled a thin layer of salt across the jar's bottom. Next, she laid down a layer of cabbage chunks. Pale white stalks and green leaves tumbled into the jar, glistening with moisture. She sprinkled another layer of salt, pressed the cabbage down firmly with her palm, then stacked a second layer of vegetables. The movements were simple, yet carried a strange rhythmic order. One layer of cabbage, one layer of salt. After every layer, she pressed down hard with her palms to squeeze trapped air from between the leaves. Salt grains soaked up the vegetable juice and dissolved slowly. The audience watched in total confusion. Is she burying corpses in there? Shut up, that's cabbage. If you seal vegetables in a jar and dump salt on them, won't they rot? Is this some ancient Earth sacrificial ritual? Any botanists watching to explain this? Over at the Interstellar Botany Institute, researchers were indeed tuned into the live stream. Several scientists huddled around a light screen in a conference room, their recording pens paused mid-note. Is she dehydrating them for storage? Salt breaks down plant cells, but controlled concentrations can suppress toxic microbial growth. The issue is this term she used, pickled cabbage. Does that word appear in any ancient document fragments? A white-haired professor stared unblinking at the footage. Look it up immediately. Back on the wasteland planet, Mooley had filled the jar halfway. Cabbage juice oozed out from the salt, creating a soft, wet gurgle at the jar's base. She loaded the remaining cabbage inside and sprinkled one final handful of rock salt. She did not have much salt left, but it would suffice for this first test batch. From the rubble, she fetched a flat stone slab, purified and rinsed it twice to eliminate all contamination, then pressed it down firmly on top of the cabbage. The stone weighed the vegetables tight, forcing more juice to rise to the surface. Mooley covered the jar's mouth with a large shard of clay tile, wrapped the exterior with purified dry plant fiber, and sealed all gaps with wet mud scooped from her clean purified soil. The mud was thin enough to avoid hassle when opening the jar later. She sealed every crease with great care, running her fingers repeatedly along the rim until no gaps remained, then carried the clay pot to a cool shaded spot beside her hut. Her live stream terminal hovered nearby, and the comment section had shifted from confusion to frantic curiosity. Wait, what exactly is this supposed to be? She just sealed it shut like that? Will the cabbage rot trapped inside? What if it reeks when she opens it in 3 days? Streamer, say something. Mooley knelt to level the pot's base, ensuring gusts of wind could not topple it, then dragged her dust-proof cloth over to shield the jar from blowing toxic grit. She lifted her head to face the camera directly. This was the first time she'd looked straight at the live stream viewers. Dust dusted her brows, and dehydration left her lips chapped, yet her eyes shone clear and bright. One hand rested lightly on the clay tile lid, as if guarding a precious treasure just locked away. This is called pickled cabbage. Her voice remained cool and crisp, with a faint, barely hidden note of quiet pride lacing the end of her sentence. In 3 days, it will turn into a whole new delicacy. The live stream fell silent for a single beat. The next instant, bullet comments flooded the screen so thick they nearly blocked the footage entirely. She spoke. The streamer finally explained. Pickled cabbage? What kind of vegetable is that? I'm camping this live stream in 3 days for the opening. No one stop me. I'm witnessing the grand opening of this mysterious ancient earth jar. Did I catch a hint of pride just now? She's definitely proud of herself. Gift notifications popped up one after another nonstop. Gift received. 1,000 star coins. Message, deposit for pickled cabbage. Gift received. 666 star coins. Message, wake me up in 3 days for the reveal. Gift received. 3,000 star coins. Message, request shared sensory feed for the first bite after opening. Gift received. 8,888 star coins. Message, Ancient Earth Cuisine Observation Fund. Mooley glanced at her rising balance, her fingers brushing the edge of her terminal. Her follower count climbed steadily, for 0.8 million. For 0.9 million. 5 million. A platform system alert popped up, and the audience grew far more excited than she was. 5 million followers. The wasteland farmer has made it big. I started watching for roasted potatoes, now pickled cabbage. Am I tuning into a survival stream or a revival of ancient earth cooking? Mooley barely reacted to the milestone. 5 million followers could not conjure clean water or rock salt out of thin air. While gifts helped, interstellar shipping fees made them an unreliable resource. What truly kept her alive was her land, vegetables, pigs, and this clay jar. She cleared the debris around the pot and built a simple protective frame from scrap metal sheets. The pickled cabbage would ferment for 3 full days. In that time, she had to keep braised pork #1 from knocking it over, block toxic dust from settling inside, and prevent toxic vines from creeping close. She was about to head to the pig pen to check on her livestock when a sudden bright flash lit up the distant wasteland. Blindingly bright, as if a chunk of red-hot metal had been hurled out of the dark night, Mooley lifted her gaze. Beneath the gray-black sky, a streak of fire dragged a long glowing tail, tearing across the distant barren plains and plummeting straight toward the ground.